Green light, okay.
The reason why I'm changing so much because I know we're going to keep staring at it because I'm especially want to stare at it with my fangs in there. I can look at piss jars the whole time.
Piss jars. All right, you ready?
That'll make you look away.
There we go. Before you, we're on the same page. All right. Welcome back, folks. We're going to talk about what makes a vampire.
What?
Welcome to the Dylan and Joe Basement Podcast. We're your hosts, Dylan and Joe. And today we have a very special, unique episode you can sink your teeth into.
Today, we're talking about vampires.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dylan and Joe Basement Podcast. This week, we're starting off our spooktacular early this year because we're talking about vampires. The history, pop culture, modern vampires, and perhaps even a couple of real life vampires that truly exist in our world today. That's what we're diving into today first. We'll start with Dylan. What are we thinking we should start with today? Usually we go to the history first and then we bring it into the modern world. Should we start at the beginning? The birth, the thesis of all vampire?
I think that's an excellent idea, Joe. Starting with the beginning of vampires, where this started, where the idea started, and maybe where the real life stories all came from. Let's start with the history of vampires to get this podcast up and moving.
Blah. Either way, the earliest that I saw come up was the idea of a strigoi. That's what I found in the past. Obviously, there's always these ideas of like the undead, the living dead. Those have been around as long as people have believed in, something beyond death. When people come back to life, and there's some kind of tie between the idea of a vampire and the undead, but they're not exactly linked one to one. We'll get into it as we go here.
Great point, actually.
But the earliest ones that I found are called strigoi, which are basically like witches. They're lost souls that something they did in their life caused them, or they volunteered to become this beach, and basically like a witch that can suck the life out of you and steal your life force energy, which is where the whole idea of vampire sucking blood comes from. It's that they're stealing the thing that makes you alive. I mean, old-fashioned doctors didn't know a whole lot of shit, but they knew if you don't have a lot of blood, you don't live anymore, so blood must mean you're alive. And if something wants to steal your blood, they want to steal your life. That's about as early back as I found it. It's the idea of a strigoi. And it's around the Eastern European, Northern Mediterranean area where a lot of our stories will take place in. You gotta hear that first here.
So the strigoi come from Eastern Europe is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's like the whole idea, or like the mythology behind that comes from that area, and where, as it develops out through history, that's where a lot of our vampire action is, and maybe even our most famous vampire comes from that very area too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it feels like it kind of just feeds into that. But the idea of a strigoi is all throughout Europe, not just Eastern Europe. Like this witch that'll take your spirit, and the most deadly and evil of which are the ones that died and came back to life as undead vampire beasts to suck your blood at night.
And from my research on vampires, the ones that come back to life, the life force is from the bad acts that they did as living people. Because as we know, vampires are vampires, as the word comes from, V-A-M-P-Y-R, which actually stems from another word.
Or the vampire.
Yeah.
Because of the weird double W pronunciation.
Yep.
They don't actually call them a vampire. Or vampire.
Vampire, yeah.
But we call them a vampire.
And then eventually somewhere in the history, it went from a V-A-M-P-Y-R-E to a V-A-M-P-I-R-E.
Yeah.
From vampire to
And so we get the
vampire.
super English pronunciation, which is vampire.
Vampire.
Not
And
vampire.
back to the dead, the vampires, again, were always living people. And then something happened to them, and then they became dead for a short period of time.
Yes.
They came back to life, and they think a lot of that energy stems from what they did in their human being existence, and that life force is stemmed from those bad acts or that bad person they were, not necessarily their good things.
That's why they call it a curse, right? It's not really it's like you're not no longer allowed to be dead, and you're constantly thirsting for blood. You need to take the life force of humans for eternity to remain vital, but you can never truly die. You just wither away as a vampire.
And you can never truly really feel alive or feel great, and that's the integrity of the vampire that we are going to talk a lot about today. Is that it's almost, I guess the word's dichotomy, where you have two things going on.
Sure, two sides of the coin.
Yeah,
there.
two sides of the coin.
What are the two sides?
You get to live eternally.
Right.
You don't necessarily never die, because you can. There's a couple ways we'll get into.
Right, but you won't die of old age or sickness or something like that.
But you have to sacrifice the living or the life force of regular people to maintain some sort of sense of normalcy.
Really, in those senses.
I'm sorry. Me and Joe
normalcy.
here, we're going to pretend we're not vampires for 2 seconds. We're going to try to slow
For anyone who didn't realize it's a visual podcast,
our S's.
this will prove to you why you should watch the YouTube video instead of listening to it on Spotify, because it's going to sound like shit. Got fangs on, baby!
Yeah, we got fangs on, and they came in different sizes, and I chose the biggest ones because
All different shapes and sizes.
sometimes you don't think things through. Because you gotta say
But it looks
S.
good, though.
It looks great.
It's great. But yeah, that's kind of the idea of equivalent exchange in a vampire, where it's like, yeah, you get to have all these gifts, but in exchange, you must actually, like you said, to sacrifice or take human spirit, their life force, to keep you going. It's not a free thing. You can't just walk outside and have the moon recharge your powers. You actually need to take and take and take and take to maintain the abilities and the privilege that you have to be an undead monster.
Exactly.
And
so you talked about Eastern Europe.
right.
We have vampires almost in every part of the world, from Serbia to Greece.
To Turkmenistan and even Syria.
And in Syria. And there's always a type of being that everybody used as either a lesson or somebody who generally came in and haunted them at night or drank or they had the Greek vampire was typically anytime someone died young or had sort of an issue, that person, they blamed the Greek vampires for that. Like, they're like, oh, it must have been them.
Yeah.
This energy or this force or these people that come up.
Yeah,
and
Eastern Europe does not have the dichotomy, I'm saying it again.
Yeah.
They don't have the only vampires ever, even the Strigoi. Like, it's basically a worldwide thing. Even in other nations, like in Japan, like everything we talk about, Japan, China, Central, South America, they all have their version of the vampire too. The undead are come and steal your souls, or your spirit, rather.
Yep, exactly. And the Hellenica is the Greek word for vampire.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know, thought of that.
That's a very Greek-sounding word. I'm sure.
There's a Hellenistic period. I wouldn't have thought it'd be a
and I'm sure that we're screwing it up pretty bad, but
yeah, I don't know how to pronounce Greek stuff.
Yeah. Or actually, it could be it's either Hellenica. We might be getting our research wrong here, or Viracolacus. That sounds a bit more right. In the you meant the
Hellenistic period.
Hellenistic period, which is where the Viracolacus. Sorry, everybody. Viracolacus.
Gotcha.
Viracolacus.
Sounds very Greek and very scary.
Exactly. And again, this is what they use to explain abnormalities in humans or early deaths. If babies were born, which happens today, obviously, with when babies are born with a little bit extra of a tailbone or other abnormalities, they wanted to typically these people, if they made it through like early childhood and that type of stuff, these people were shunned and stricken from society. Because they were different, and they thought that they either were or they had pieces of them that they were the Vricolacus.
The Vricolacus.
Vricolacus.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes up a lot in vampire history, which is the fact that it's, as we talk about it more and more modern, it gets to be more of like a fictional tale and all the cool things you can put into it, almost like a comic book story or like a Harry Potter book. But throughout most of human history, vampires have been considered not only a legitimate threat, but a very real thing and an explanation for tons of things that are terrible that happen to people, whether it's diseases like leprosy, circumstances like porphyria, or even just, burying people prematurely and thinking they're dead and then they're not actually dead. They can blame vampirism on all those things, and that's why the legends grow and they become, more and more powerful, and people take them very seriously. It's not a joke.
Absolutely. And it's another thing too, is if people aren't baptized during this time, they're at risk. Not necessarily guaranteed, but they're at risk for coming back as a vampire. Especially, obviously, if you're into witchcraft, which brings us later on today.
Yeah, and there's always that mixture of like the devil is in everything bad in the world, and if you don't believe in Christ, you could become one of his servants, one of which, a vampire, another witch, a witch.
Which?
Which witch?
Yep.
Couldn't tell you.
Exactly.
But
so, our point being is that vampires go back until the earliest times. Anything different.
And like a lot of stuff we talk about, the idea must have popped up independent of each other, because it comes well before the world is globalized and interconnected. But you have people in Japan, people in modern day Mexico, and people in Romania all come to the same idea of people who are undead, suck your blood and tell your spirits. So there's one of those universal truths we talk about in the podcast, like the stories of giants or other things we talk about, ghosts, where it's like everyone's got their ideas about it. So it couldn't have just been that one guy came up with it and everyone bought in. It's like it popped up all over.
And we've already hit on one reason why it's probably universal reality, not even a truth, just universal reality of ancient times, is the first thing we mentioned is abnormality. I can't say it with these fangs in. Abnormalities amongst the human race physically, as things you can just see with your eyeballs. Second thing we mentioned is religion-based things, which comes, Aleister Crowley, we're talking all these other things of people who just go against the grain with religion, so they use it to scare you. And then the third thing, which is more like the first thing, is actual diseases that make people thirst for blood, or they give them blood, or blood is the cure. You mentioned that early on. So there's a lot of reasons. And then the fourth one is vampires probably are real.
The real life version.
The real life version.
The curse and the magic and the transformation and all that shit. Excusez-moi.
Excuse both of us.
Too many Bloody Marys before the podcast. Stop it. Yeah. Alrighty, so let's get into it. Vampires from there on in history to the modern day.
We're going to pop out of our coffins around 6 p.m. at night, well, like in the evening, to go right to one of our most famous vampires in history. And today, right now, we're going to talk about who?
Dracula himself. Talking about Vlad the Impaler, which is the inspiration, true and fictional, for Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is easily the most famous vampire ever. Even people will call vampires Draculas, which I think is hilarious and think people should do more often. It's very funny when people are like, there's a Dracula down the street from me. Because obviously Dracula's one guy, but I think it's very funny to use it as an synonym for vampires. Do that out there this year. I'm dressed as a Dracula. We're a group of Draculas.
Yeah, we're just a group of Draculas.
There's my Dracula wife. I'm Dracula. My kids are Draculas. I think it's great. But yeah, so it's Vlad the Impaler from, believe it or not, Transylvania, It's a real place. It's a subsection of Romania. That's not, much of a kingdom anymore. But back in the 1400s, Europe was even more sliced to pieces than it is now. And Transylvania was a legitimate kingdom that was butted up very closely against the Ottoman Empire, also known as the other side of the Crusades. The north had all the Christian nations, all the money and kings and power, and the south had all the Muslim nations, all the money and kings and power. The unfortunate part about Transylvania's position is that not only were they not a very populated nation, they were the border between the Christian Europe and the Muslim Middle East and South, and they got a lot of shit for it. They had to put up for a lot of bullshit. And it's not like America where if we had an invasion from the South, everything would unite and group up together. Transylvania got left high and dry. When the Ottoman Empire invaded, they're like, oh shit, it's just us, huh?
You don't have a whole lot.
Anyone want to help us out?
Yeah.
And then the rest of Europe is like, not our problem at all.
Yeah, no, you guys are like high up in the mountains in what's
Yep.
modern day Romania, and
So, no
it's just not a place we want to go and fight for you guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Good
When
luck.
you're all dead, let us know so that we can get our army ready for whatever's left of the army that came through you, hoping that you can kill as many as possible. We don't actually fucking care though. But yeah, that's what
Yeah.
so Vlad got
So-
his start there.
Yeah, and Vlad the Impaler's name is interesting.
It is.
His name's obviously Vladimir the Impaler. His last name is the Impaler.
That's not interesting in itself.
No, but Dracula is really a word that stems from like 1,000 things.
Yes.
Like 3 things.
Right.
And Dracula.
Weirdly enough, it was kind of named by Christians, which I would have never
Christians in Ireland. It's a Gaelic thing that like Dracul or Dracula actually translates in Gaelic as Drac-ula, meaning bad blood. And
That's
the thing is, it's kind of weird with Vlad the Impaler because it's something
sorry, go ahead.
his father was Dracul.
Yeah.
And Dracula in Transylvanian is it's like one of his last names. Dracula means son of Dracul.
Right. That's
So it's like
interesting.
there's 2 different things going on.
I didn't know about the Gaelic translation. That kind of
Yeah.
seems like a. First of all, that's fascinating. It means bad blood. That's awesome because it's such a vampire thing to have bad blood. And also a Taylor Swift song, not important.
Is it really a Taylor Swift song?
Oh yeah,
Does she
Vlad Dracula.
Taylor Swift? Please comment in the comment section.
We
of the
promise
video.
we won't ignore you this time. We'll actually.
Yeah. Or email us at dylanjoebasement@gmail.com. Everyone's welcome to that. Send whatever pictures you want.
Oh, yeah.
Please, Taylor Swift, send us an email, comment if you actually know bad blood is a vampire thing.
If you knew we got Dracula, it goes like that. But anyways, so I did not know that because the original saying of it is from that Romanian language. When they came back from the Crusades, his father his name was not even Vlad Dracul. It was because his insignia with his company, he was a lord in Transylvania. So when you go down with all your buddies, and by buddies I mean people who work for you down in the Crusades, you kill a couple Muslims, you come back a hero. His insignia was a dragon. And that is what that word comes from, Vlad the Dragon.
Yep.
So when they call him Vlad Dracula, it's like you said, it's the Vlad, the son of the dragon.
Son of the Dragon, and there was a group much like the group that our friend, a lot of the friends in the podcast, the friends of the podcast that we talk about, were with. It was almost like a cult that was a dragon cult too, as well. That was stemmed from this as well.
That makes sense.
And there's a lot going on. In
Romania. We'll
Yeah.
get to all of it, but we'll
Yeah.
try. We'll try. our
Yeah,
best
we'll
there.
try. A lot of irons in fire with this.
So yeah, around that time the Ottomans trying to take over a lot of Europe. The Crusades are the third swing around. I think it was the third Crusades fighting around back and forth. And as part of that, Vlad Dracula, who we'll mention as Vlad the Impaler from now on, he is actually captured as a hostage by the Ottoman Empire, and he has to live among them.
He didn't like
for
that.
a time. Didn't like
Yep.
that. As you could tell by his father and him and everybody, they all didn't like any of that shit. But yeah, he had to spend a good deal of time with them, and what actually ended up helping him immensely in the future because he got to learn the language of people in the Ottoman Empire. He got
Common theme with Draculas and vampires. A lot of languages these people know.
Sure, yeah.
All
Well, I
of
mean,
them.
you got all kinds of time.
All kinds of time, but they all are very smart. They're like
Yeah.
educated people.
That's part of it too. They're not like a lot of other monsters in myths and
Werewolves would be a good
tales.
example.
Yeah, they're just bestial,
Just
strong,
fucking shit up.
vicious. But
Yeah.
Dracula's, a lot of the time, they have that cunning swarthiness, even sexiness to kind of draw you in.
Absolutely.
The idea of having to be invited in, it's like I have to kind of win my way through this.
Yeah, you gotta
not just attack viciously.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I always think the vampires are much cooler with that swarthy Dracula style vampire versus like the 30 Days of Night or 40 Days of Night vampire.
More like a zombie. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, we've seen zombies.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely agree. Or we'll get there in a minute, folks. But
Yeah.
my thesis or my opinion on the new American Horror Story,
We'll
where
get
there's
there.
just these like exactly almost zombies that are just have teeth and are stupid.
Just zombies.
The real vampires are really what I look like, which was again a creation of what's his name?
Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker in the book Dracula from late 1800s.
It's definitely based off of Vlad Dracula or
No question.
the Impaler.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
part of that comes from the idea of being a count, being a lord, like having your own castle. You know.
Exactly. But you know what count is? What count means?
No.
It's fascinating. I learned this today.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So, let's say Count Dracula, for example. Not naming names, but
Let's name names.
not naming names, but
Count Dracula.
Count Dracula. What people would do back in those days. So Vlad the Impaler's from the 1400s.
Yes.
So we're talking around this time to ward off vampires. What they would do is they would lay down. People would throw out seeds.
Okay.
Literally, just I don't know. They just said seeds. That's all I know. And
Potential life.
Again,
you're
it's my third time
sacrificing
apologizing.
plant life.
My fangs are too big.
That's just gonna happen. That's just
Joe,
part of it.
Joe, did you get the kids package? Because I didn't get the kids package.
I know. Maybe I just have tiny teeth.
You bought these teeth, my friend. And
I mean, they fit my teeth smaller. But I don't know. I just pushed them up the size that came. There's a
Okay.
picture of a man on the package, and I was like, oh, there we go.
I had 3 sizes to choose from, and I chose the largest ones because
Well.
this is a production. In case anyone
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
know,
No, I
this is
appreciate
a production, and I thought more eyeliner, bigger teeth.
Yeah.
Because
For getting into the podcast.
it's
and
for
not
the
a movie.
camera. We're doing this. So I do have a little bit of a vampire list going
That's
on.
okay. We'll forgive you going forward.
Let's just everyone forgive me for this. So back to count and
throwing
laying down
seeds.
Throwing down seeds. Some sort of thing I was reading about seeds. People would throw down seeds around their property, and it's pretty funny. They throw down seeds on their property to ward off vampires, and the reason it wards off vampires is I'm going to give you 2 guesses, Joe. Why would just generic seeds of some sort that let's just say nuts or seeds that are bigger ward off a vampire?
My first guess was when you were describing is that it's kind of like a form of tribute, like giving up something that you want. Like seeds to us seem like they're just bird feed. You just throw them everywhere. Who gives a shit? But for people who have very little and they're peasants, seeds mean next year I can eat. And being able to disperse those willy-nilly and put them around your house is almost like putting like a sacrificial animal out front and be like, just take this. Please don't take my life. Take this potential life of these seeds and take this as tribute to spend one more night where I won't be haunted by the vampire curse.
All right,
my
so
best
that's guess number 1. I'm giving you 2. I'm going to give you why that's wrong. 'Cause
My-
it's important. Wait, number 1 is wrong.
Okay, all right.
And the reason it's wrong is because you've seen What They Do in the Shadows, right?
Yes, I have. That's a
Okay,
great
so what
movie.
happens when he eats a French fry, or a chip, as they call it in that show? That movie, not the show. The
Oh,
movie.
I haven't seen it in like 3 years, but like it turns to ash or whatever. He can't eat it.
So he eats a bunch of quote unquote chips in the show, which are it's the new
We can
vampire.
call them French fries. We're not.
It's the new
not
vampire
from,
in the movie when it
New
happens.
Zealand.
It's the new. They're all 800 years old, except for one guy. They bite, and he turns into a vampire, comes back and hangs out. And they go to a restaurant in New Zealand, eats a bunch of chips, aka French fries, because he's like, fuck it, whatever. And he throws up blood in
Yeah.
the exact same fashion as Team America when he's throwing up in the dumpster.
Oh no, I wouldn't eat that.
Why?
Are you okay, Mick? Right?
The extra tip.
This goes for like way too long.
You get your shit and your pussy. Oh no, you get your pussy and your asshole all covered in shit. And he goes, "Ugh," and he throws it up for like
Pussy and Dick's all covered in shit. That's
Sorry,
the
Pussy and
asshole
Dick.
shit
Yeah,
all
sorry.
over everything.
Yeah, shit all over everything.
Get the quote right. It's
So,
your favorite movie.
Jesus, it's been at least a year since I've seen it. Okay, give me a break.
I saw it like a month ago.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I gotta watch again. So, anyways, but the new vampire in that show throws up because he had French fries. Like
Yeah,
throws
you can't
up
eat any
behind a
human
dumpster
food.
like for a long time. It's hilarious. So
that's the reason, because they can't eat seeds.
no, whoa, wait. So I'm telling you, your number one thing is wrong.
Gotcha.
Because they can't eat real food or else they'll throw up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought it
So-
was more of a symbolic gesture either way. It wasn't
I
like they're
don't-
going to eat the seeds.
All
It was
right.
more like this is my livelihood. Basically, like, I'm going to kill you, or you have to empty your wallet out. And you empty your wallet to be like, well, do you really want to kill me, or do you want my wallet? They really want to kill you, though. They really don't want your wallet, vampires. They don't have any use for money. They have eternal life. They just need your blood.
True. Okay. So
My
I'm
second
giving you
guess is
one
that
more
it's
guess.
it's a euphemism for jizz, and they actually just jizz all over their yard, and it scares them away because vampires are virgins. They can never suck the
they-
blood of anybody.
They love virgins.
Yes.
So both are
That's
wrong.
my two guesses.
It goes back to the educated vampire.
The educated.
The educated vampire.
Okay.
Vampire. And that vampires are typically. So I don't want to say OCD because the more you read about OCD, it's not necessarily like this. But vampires.
It's not like vampirism.
Vampire. I don't get it.
OCD is not very similar to being a vampire.
It is when people say.
Oh, it kinda is.
This is why when people say they're really OCD about things, it
They're
means they
not.
actually don't have OCD.
No.
People with OCD is
They
way
don't talk
different.
about it. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's
very
debilitating.
different. Yeah, exactly. But vampires are very. Let's just say it for now. Very OCD about things.
Yeah.
So they see all these things, they start counting them. They like to count everything. They're
I know a
"Oh,
guy
I have
who likes to do
96
that."
seeds.
Ah, that's one. One bat. Two bats. Three fabulous flyers.
And they start. So they take their
It's
time.
to distract them.
They take their time because they know that the vampires can be like they're very orderly and very things need to be this certain way.
Yeah.
So they throw seeds around there because it really buys them some time.
Well, that's just.
So that's why they get count from.
That's
This is-
stupid. That's
but
so
this
fucking
is
dumb.
true. It's true.
Well, because people who are counts, they rule over pieces of land.
I don't know where I fucking heard this from. 'Cause this is, I
love this
I
idea.
genuinely listened to a podcast today.
I love
that
this
was,
idea.
And they spent a solid 15 minutes
But
on
there's,
talking about
you know,
counting things.
There's 1,000 counts
why they're
that
Count
aren't
Dracula.
vampires, though.
Are
There's
you sure about this?
the Count of Monte Cristo is not a vampire.
Oh, shit.
Also fictional. Yeah, counts aren't always vampires. There's the one on Sesame Street, which we will talk about.
Yeah, he
He's
does.
the best.
But he's always counting.
And Count
He's always counting.
But it's because of the pun, not because vampires are obsessive
I
compulsive.
know he's a vampire who's counting things all the
All
time.
right. Well, I'm glad you.
I don't know what you're saying.
because it's definitely fascinating.
Yeah.
But there's no way the word count. Count Dracula is not a count because he's a vampire.
Maybe-
He was already a count.
Maybe he's a fucking property owner and he'll just count cows and sheep all day. I don't know.
Maybe
You know?
that's where it comes from.
Yeah, maybe
counting
he's
their
counting his sheep.
counting their peasants or
His
their
fucking
land.
things
I can
are-
see that part of it. All
He's,
right, yeah.
he's counting his.
But the word count is not
counting his.
inextricably linked with vampires. You can be a count and not be a vampire. Then you become a vampire, you're still a count. They could call him King Dracula,
Do you think-
but they didn't call him King Vladimir.
Do you think maybe people who are more likely to be a count are more likely to be vampires?
Now, see, that's something I want to get into because I hadn't even thought about that.
Just saying. You know, like maybe there's a thing to this. Maybe 60% of all counts end up being vampires.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're really obsessive about your looks, then being a vampire is going to suck for you because when you're just trying to shave your face just perfectly right, good luck without a mirror.
Oh. Should we talk about that real quick?
We should. Let's finish off
What is
Vlad,
it?
and
Yeah,
then we'll
we'll
get
finish
into
that,
the
then we'll talk about what-
fictional vampires. We'll
Yeah.
say what things they follow, what they don't follow.
Yeah, there are very actual,
lot of different rules.
very, very strict. Like vampires do. There's not like one that's a little bit different. They're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Yeah, they
almost
all, like
all of them. Yeah.
the mirror thing. Like that's a fact. So let's finish off Vlad, then we'll get back into things.
Yeah, let's finish off Vlad, and then we'll take a commercial break, and then we'll get into vampires. But so Vlad. So when he does come back from his exile and or his hostage situation in the Ottoman Empire, he comes back and he realizes that there's this whole group of nobles at the time called boyars. I don't know what they're called, like boyars or whatever you pronounce it. But there's this whole group of people who are basically like voting in and out.
Is that a virgin?
Not by voyeurs.
A lot of virgins and vampires, they really are into
It's
that.
my first time. I'm a voyeur.
Just checking, because they don't discriminate
Again,
by sex.
it's not voyeur, it's boyar.
Oh,
But
okay,
so basically they're not voting because it's medieval times, but they're basically choosing who's going to become the sovereign of all these little territories inside Transylvania, and they treat his dad like shit, and they want him fucking out. So when he comes back, it's part of the reason why he becomes such a ruthless leader, because over the past 100 years, Transylvania's had like over 100 different rulers. So basically every couple months, this whole group of powerful nobles just kicks someone out and throws another sacrificial
You're
lamb
shitting
up
me? They
there.
get like one a year?
It's so many.
Talk about destabilizing a country.
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously it averages out to that, because some people might rule for 5 years, some last for like 1 month, and they kick them out. They haven't killed or whatever.
I'd try.
And so when Vlad Dracula comes back, he's just, this shit's over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put down my iron fist, and I'm gonna
Major.
fuck shit up. And fuck shit up he does, because not only is he a cunning leader in that way and a good military leader, he was a soldier beforehand, but he starts coming up there, and if I say he starts cutting heads off, that's putting it way too
That's
lightly.
very nice. He's like the reincarnation of Nero.
Yeah.
Like generally the next Nero is Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Nero before. We should probably do a podcast on him.
Yes, but I think that Vlad got a lot more shit done than Nero.
No, but based off of the way he decided to put his fist down.
Right. Oh no, I think that's a one-to-one
his-
comparison. That's a great comparison. But
Or
Nero
where
is
he
more
puts
of like
his
the
fist up.
Nero kind of just maintained and did all kinds of great shit. But Vlad used his terror and brutality to achieve shit.
Yeah,
Like he didn't just burn Christians and be like, oh yeah, they're dead. First of all, Vlad was a Christian, which is kind of different than Nero because he believed in Christ and God and all that stuff. He built like dozens of monasteries over his rule, which that's a weird square to circle.
I didn't know that. I thought he was just a spawn of Satan. I didn't know that he was.
No, he was a
actually-
Christian. That's why he fought in the Crusades against the Muslims. He was a upright Christian man, and he thought that he could ask the rest of Europe to save him because they were also Christians. They go, oh, fight for Christianity, fight for this, that, and the other thing. But I just think that he used his terror and brutality in a more constructive way, which is awful to say. But like, he didn't just burn people for the sake of burning them. He did it. I'm sure he enjoyed it, but
And
also
boiled.
to set out. Yeah, yeah,
Burned and boiled.
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
To set up like this idea of like you can't just oust me this year. Like I am the new one in town, and no one's gonna try to fucking tip me over my holy chair here. I'm the fucking one in charge, and we'll talk about it right now. He sent his message.
He sent his message. So
Yeah. So they call him Vlad the Impaler for starters.
And we'll talk about that right now.
Let's do
it. So, Vlad the Impaler is a real great case study in history of someone who just decides he's got to do some stuff and how he's going to do it. So, he got specifically the Impaler
Yeah.
from, again, a couple different sources give me a couple different stories. I
Oh,
thought,
let's do some stories about it.
okay, so first story I heard before this week was that in battle, his favorite thing to do is bend someone over and stick a sword right up their ass and out their mouth.
Wow. That
Hence
takes a lot of time.
The Impaler. But the actual more realistic one is that probably does happen where he likes to just stab people in the asshole out their mouth.
Right. But not in a battle, though.
Totally cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
But what he did is the people that he didn't agree with or whatever it was, he'd actually put them on a stake.
Yes, this is what I think. is
Over
the accurate
time.
version.
So
Yeah.
he put them on a stake, a wooden stake that was sharp.
Oh, we're listening to the little keys.
Wooden stake that was very sharp, and it's in their ass. And
Well, there's two versions of it, though.
I'll give what I know, and then you know. So so all these like people that are opposing him or whatever it is are in public on a stake, and it's in their ass. It's not going to kill them right away because it's not sharp enough, and it's not whatever it is. But over time, their muscles start to give out, almost like a crucifixion.
Yeah.
And over time, once the muscles start to weaken and this type of stuff, that stake does go up through their ass and out their mouth. So it's a time thing. So they could be there for hours or days.
Yeah.
By the time it's finally over with, they're like a nice sausage on a skewer, going out the top, going in the bottom, out the top.
And they don't even give
Hence
you water.
the impaling.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I was to say the two versions of it is the sharpened stake where they could basically just shove it through your body or through your organs to kill you, or the version you talked about, which is this preferred version, which is actually a nice rounded pole, not sharp at all.
Okay,
Make it nice and round. They would lube it up with all kinds of preservative oils so it wouldn't splinter off.
Like coconut oil from Whole Foods.
Yeah,
that's where it's getting
because
from.
if the wood splintered, it would make a better version of sepsis happenings. Like the more cuts and bleeding you have, the more bacteria can get in and kill you faster. They want it to be perfectly long and perfectly awful. So they would lube it up, they'd put it up your ashes like you said, and they would wait days and days until eventually it would crush up through all your organs and the internal bleeding would kill you. But it'd be so slow, it's just the force of gravity pulling your organs onto it. I mean, that's just at that point,
Well, the craziest thing is that like this,
and it sends a message. Because you can also put them out in public, row after row of people like this, just sitting and slowly dying.
Suffering and dying.
And you can say, if you try to oppose me or go against the fucking program, I have no problem putting you up next. It was men, women, children. No one's safe. Put them up on the stage.
No one's safe. And we've done Google Analytics on our podcast, and of the thousands of listeners we get a month.
We're all the time.
And watchers a month. Most of us are like probably European descendants.
Yes.
Me and Joe are, for sure. There's a good chance we have relatives in the past, or our relatives knew people that this is a thing.
It's a relatively
Someone
good
might
chance.
have had, like, whether it's Vlad the Impaler or like other crazy psychos. This is like the way things went down. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think that's important to mention before we get into even the more insane, awful torture shit he did, is that in a vacuum, he sounds like an absolute psychopath. Like if major world leaders were doing this at this point, they'd be on the list of most famous serial killers and all this kind of shit. It'd be breaking news every day. Like, can you believe this fucking guy? But at the time, obviously, he was particularly brutal. He had to go above and beyond to have the reputation. But this is medieval times, people. This happened all the time. No matter what kingdom you were in, you're on the rack, on the wheel. There was a million ways to kill people and a million ways to torture them and hang them and kill them in public to make a display of your power. So Vlad the Impaler, even though I think he deserves his reputation as the most brutal and most awful, it wasn't like he was the only guy doing this shit. Everyone was doing it, but he made it a fucking pastime and became his name.
Yeah, there's so many of these people in history, like who's the Asian guy?
How far back we go?
No. The guy who like went over Asia and had a crazy name like Vlad the Impaler, except it was the.
You're talking about the Mongolian Empire?
Yeah, exactly.
Genghis Khan?
He's in the Genghis Khan level of people who are really fucking
famous for being brutal.
Crazy town.
Genghis Khan obviously way more successful than Vlad, but he had a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, but Vlad's body count's pretty high too.
Oh yeah,
I know the numbers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into the different kinds of torture scenarios he did, and then we'll hit it.
Yeah, so we got impaling, which is his favorite.
That's his classic. That's the cheeseburger with fries of we have other dishes.
Yeah, when they tell you to like do what you love for a living, in 2021, like find a job that you really love to do and you're passionate about and it's unique to you, and you'll make money. The money will come, like Mother Teresa said.
Do what you love, and you never work a day in your life.
That's exactly it. Vlad the Impaler would like to impale people.
And impale he did.
But he didn't also. He also was. He decided this was a time we had to kill out people, so he's going to be creative. He was a very creative guy. He wanted to be creative. So impaling was his favorite thing. Thinking outside the coffin, as Joe mentioned.
Thank you.
I want to make sure everyone heard that.
I appreciate
that was a Joe comment. He also liked to boil people to death.
Yes, boiling people alive.
That's cool. Yep.
Slowly maintaining the heat until it boils. He even had special cauldrons built at one point so he could boil people and still see their heads.
Nice.
So instead of having it full of water and boiling, they would dump boiling water into it so they have to
have a hole just big enough for the neck.
Yeah, so they can still see them scream.
Yeah, it's classic. I mean,
effective.
If you're doing that, why wouldn't you do that? You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna do that, you gotta eat.
I'm gonna boil a guy. I want to hear him fucking scream. You know?
Yeah, can you imagine him going out throughout his town and chilling and be like, "Look, I need a woodsman. A woodsmith, a craftsman,
Lumberjack.
No, they cut down trees. No,
artisan,
a woodsmith, a
builder. Carpenter.
Yeah.
Is there another word that's not for carpenter or builder?
I feel like someone who's like a really special details guy with wood.
Carpenter.
Well, they build houses.
They build all kinds of shit.
It's true, but can a carpenter do fine trim work like around windows?
Good ones can.
That's true. Are they milling their own like trim? I feel like carpenters are just taking materials and just applying them? Who's the guy who makes the crown molding? You're like a real
right,
specialist.
Right. Well, yeah, probably a specialized carpenter. I don't know if there's another word for it. We're getting bogged down in this. No
I
matter.
don't know. I mean, if I would,
If we think of the word, we'll put it in the podcast.
if I was the person, I would be the guy who would be doing the details, not the massive amount of things. I'd be like making one statue of a fucking frog.
Yeah,
I'm that guy.
Takes a lot of time, but it looks.
I'm the guy
perfect.
who's making the life-size statue of a squirrel that would go on the rail trail in Hudson. That would be me.
Quality over quantity, rather.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like oh, I got to put a thing out there. We need a guy like this. So but then they have to take time and days to put out a proposal and say we need someone to respond to this. So
where is this going?
This is going where I just think it's funny that this guy spent at least a few days looking for the right guy who said, this is my problem. I'm boiling people. And
an engineer.
I'm boiling them, maybe an engineer. I'm boiling them, but I want to see their heads, and I'm not sure how to do this. And I'm scared.
I need help. I'll be honest. I
don't know how to fucking make a wood
I
boiling
can't
pot.
hear them screaming in the water. I need to hear the screams.
Yeah. So some guy said, "Yeah, I can do that for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take
fabricator.
that pot, I'm going to make the lid on it, and then make a hole in it, but put the lid, make it bolt around their head so they can
like
have
the
things."
stalks.
He had to think. He had to go. This is a problem I have right now, and I need this done. And some guy responds, said, "Yeah, I'll make that."
Yeah.
He found a guy.
I feel like you'd be able to find people pretty easily, even if they weren't capable,
because they're
saying
scared.
no to this guy, it's not a good move.
Not a good idea.
You don't even have to say no. You can just say nothing, and sometimes he might take you out. For one example, so he's in the middle of Europe, or in one part of Europe, being pushed on between the Roman Catholicism of the time and the Eastern Orthodox Christianity, which is a lot of people who are in Eastern Europe and Russia are. And these Orthodox guys come on in there, and they're wearing these skull caps, which is part of the gig. You got to wear them all the time. It's little heads, caps on their heads. And when they walked into his castle, which is the castle he had built after he ruled, which is fucking Dracula's castle. It's on a fucking mountain. There's stone steps. It's like exactly what you picture it. That was his castle.
Yep.
And these guys didn't take their hats off. It was usually a sign of respect, but these guys are clergymen. They're allowed to keep their hats on. They're followers of Christ. And he said, "Why didn't you take your hats off?" And they said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir. We never take our hats off no matter what. It's part of our religion. It's part of our calling. We never take them off no matter what." And Vlad goes, "That's great. I think I'll help you with that." And he had a guy come over and take steel or iron nails and nail them into their heads. So they had their hats nailed into their skulls. And he said, "Good. Now you never have to take them off." And one of the guys, when he was watching that happen, said, "You're totally right. You work for God, you work for Christ, and what you do is the right thing to do." And he said, "Good, you can leave." The other guy said, "You're going to hell for this." And he goes, "Nail him twice as hard." So you just got to agree with the guy. You're going to fucking get nailed in more ways than one.
Yeah, one of those guys. No.
Either on the top of the head, figuratively, or actually right up the keister there with the stake. You don't say no to this guy.
Yep. Yeah. No.
Take your hat off. What are you going to do? Forgive yourself later.
Yeah. No comment.
Yeah, another version of a guy walking into his dinner party, which was often surrounded with impaled people. We mentioned this briefly in the past, but the guy said, "Why are there all these people impaled around here? It's kind of gross to eat dinner around this." And the guy goes, "I'll tell you why." And he impaled him, and he became part of the collection around the dinner table, going all that way. God, it's brutal.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay to comply.
I mean, yeah, you just forgive yourself then and, blame yourself later, but, you can kind of survive it out. And his most insane act of terror that he ever did was actually the reason why the Ottomans stopped invading Transylvania. I mean, he was losing the war for years. He was very clever. He would send in spy units where he would send people to speak their language and go in and murder them slightly. He would take people who were sick with leprosy and send them into their camps and start infecting them, which actually worked. By the end of the war, a lot of Ottomans had plague, whether it was leprosy or any other kind of disease that we can't tell out now. So his cunning worked for him. But he was going to lose the war when he wrote to Hungary and the other nations to say, "Hey, I'm a Christian guy too, come help me out." And they left him high and dry. If it wasn't for his terror, they would have defeated him and he would have been another footnote in history. But he ended up killing and displaying so many Ottomans in the forest in the south of Transylvania that when the leader of the Ottoman forces came through after the years of fighting. He saw, I think it was 30,000 people dead and displayed. He said the smell, the rot, and the vision of it let him know this is not worth continuing. Let's just go home. Yeah. We lost enough people, and this guy is a fucking maniac. He set up an entire forest for 30,000 corpses as like a fucked up Halloween exhibit just to scare us enough to leave, and half my men already have the plague. This guy might legitimately be a demon who can curse us.
Yep.
He might actually be the devil's spawn himself. We shouldn't fuck with him.
Yep. It's not good. So, do you want to wrap into his death?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, this is where the vampire thing gets interesting. So, Vlad the Impaler is said to die when Basarab Loyota returned with Ottomans to support to one of their battles. And all it says is that Vlad the Impaler died fighting against them in late December 1476 or early January in a month in 1477. And his place of burial is unknown. They don't know.
Really, I heard he was assassinated by Turks.
Okay, it says right here it's Ottomans, but
Ottomans are Turks.
Yeah, okay. So,
I just didn't think it was a battle.
but it's almost
I don't know
it's almost like a Hitler situation where no one has his bones, no one has his shit.
Yeah, they just assumed like
There's
he's
no
not.
record of things.
You haven't heard from
know.
him again, so he
Yeah.
must be gone or whatever, right?
He must be gone, and they have no record of like, where he's buried. They think it's the monastery of Snagov. Literally.
Maybe one of the ones he built. He built 10 of them, I think, during his reign.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing. He believed he was a Christian, but he would do these horrific things to children and everybody.
Literally everyone.
And he's like, I'll just build a church. It'll be fine. I'm doing it for God anyways. It's like, how people can balance that in their head is fucking insane to me.
Yeah, yep.
If there is a hell, you have to go there. You've made a case for it your entire life.
You're one of the people who are
if you don't go, then no one goes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Vlad. So,
but they don't know where his body is.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah, he supposedly is buried at some place, at some monastery, but no one has any. They're not really sure about that, and no one's digging up graves to figure that out. So.
Yeah, and if they did at this point, it'd be hard to differentiate. But there's always a chance that he was never buried.
Yeah, exactly.
Still lurks in the world we are today.
Yeah, exactly. So,
so that's him. That's Vlad the Impaler, the inspiration, almost 1-to-1 for Count Dracula himself and his castle in Transylvania. This is the guy. He had a lot more people working for him than Dracula does, but a lot less of the powers. And that being said, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to get into what vampires' powers are and what they are to all of us.
Powers are, yep, exactly.
Blah!
The Burning Jaw Basement Podcast. Meant for bats.
Welcome back, folks. We're going to talk about what makes a vampire.
What is a vampire?
What the hell is that, Joe?
We've been talking about it.
Yeah.
I think we all know what it is. It's the fangs. It's the beautiful cape and attire. It's being a count. But what really comes down to the parts of being a vampire? Let's go back and forth with this. What the fuck makes a vampire? First of all, you have to drink blood to be a vampire, right? Is there a vampire?
Well, let's start before that, actually. So, like, what takes me or you and makes you a vampire? It starts from what I've seen it from two different ways.
Yeah.
So the origins of vampires come from people dying and having unresolved problems and coming back to life after being buried.
Demons, ghosts, witches.
It's like thing. So they either have.
It's all piled into the non-Christ section of.
Yeah, exactly. You get buried unholy, and then that unholy part of you, almost like a zombie, brings your body back to life, but you're intelligent.
Yeah.
It's that, or you're another one from Nosferatu is you're buried in cursed soil. Mm-hmm. Plague soil specifically, or you're bitten by a bat that's a vampire, or you're bitten by a vampire that doesn't drain you completely.
Right. You can pass on the curse of the vampire if you feed on somebody but don't actually completely kill them.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
There's even different versions of that where you can just do like a little cute version where like I'm just gonna bite you a little bit and you become a vampire.
Yeah.
Or I bite you really hard and you die or whatever.
Yeah.
All the versions. So
Yep. So that's where it starts.
usually you get bitten though. It's almost like
Yeah.
the
like
the
a
leader
virus.
of vampire. Yeah, sure. But the patient zero, to keep on that analogy,
So I'm trying to get out right now.
is you're either buried in cursed soil or you've been cursed in life. Some kind of demonistic curses happen to you, and you're undead now, and now you can spread your virus, which is vampirism, to other people by biting them.
Yeah.
But for the most part, and
Essentially,
you
yeah.
must bite people because you have to feed on blood, right? That's how you survive.
Yeah, exactly.
At least, at the very least, you just suck the life force out of them, whether
Yep.
it is like through magic or through biting them and actually draining their literal blood through their veins. But the vampires got to suck.
Yeah, they gotta suck.
You got to
man.
suck that shit and keep it up.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's again, we're talking about patient zero. So now once you're past that point and you didn't die or whatever it is, what happens? You get bit, and then you start. Actually, I absolutely fucking goddamn it hate to say this, but Twilight does a good example of the transformation when.
Let's hear it. I've never
when
seen it.
Fucking pretty boy, whatever his name is, bites the hot chick.
Cedric Diggory.
Not sure if that's true, but I believe you.
That's his character in Harry Potter.
Okay. So he bites the Kristen Smith or whatever her last
Wiig.
name is.
Kristen Wiig.
Yeah. He bites her when she eventually wants to cross over, and she starts. Her veins start like getting solid and showing up and being black and whatever it is, and then she goes into intense abdominal pain and this pain, that pain. Then she dies. So she turns gray and dies.
So yeah, you
And
have
then-
to die and be reborn.
Yeah, she's like reborn, come back to life, and then all of a sudden
Undead.
she feels a little different. She's like, it's different, and she craves blood, and he's like, okay, you're one of us now. That's kind of how it goes in every movie I've seen.
Robert Pattinson is the actor in that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had
Robert
to
Pattinson.
He's a great actor.
He bites her.
I never saw
Christina-
Twilight, but I've seen a bunch of other shit he's been in. Fucking phenomenal. He's great.
Yeah, he's
He
good.
may be our new Leo. Stay posted.
Yeah, he's in a lot of movies too, including that World War I movie that was good. So, 1917. So, he.
Wasn't in that, but yeah.
That's not true.
No, he's in it, but he's not the main guy, right?
He's the main guy.
Well, then we're not having the same thing.
He's the second main guy.
No.
All right, I'm going crazy. Anyways, all right. If you don't look it up, go for it.
Oh yeah, I'll get this shit.
It's
now.
Ron Pattinson, dude.
He's not the main. He's too old. The two
No.
guys are young little
Ron
boys.
Pattinson, he's
They're
like
little
20,
boys.
He's like 28.
He's older than us, I think.
Is he in it? That's all I want to know.
He might be in it. A lot of British dudes are in it.
He's British.
Definitely British. Yeah.
Okay.
He's in Harry Potter. That's like his first thing he ever did. He's like a little Harry Potter boy. But he's like 3
in
years
fu-
older than
he's
Daniel
in
Radcliffe.
Goddamn Harry Potter.
Yeah, he's Cedric Diggory. He's the kid who dies in the thing. Anyways,
All right, we're getting off topic.
Anyways, he's not in it.
anyways,
here's
he
your two
bites-
guys. Here's your two main guys. You want to see?
Okay, George and Dean. All right.
This is one
Point
of them.
proven.
Do you think that's him? That's him? Or do you
That's-
think this guy's him?
Maybe I thought that was him. That's not him. The other guy looked like him. So, anyways, are you serious?
You think it was this guy?
You shitting me? Robert Pattinson not 1917?
I don't think so.
Fuck. I mean, he'd be right there. I mean,
I-
we're looking at IMDb right now. If anyone's wondering,
That's
but-
why you're saying if he was one of like the other
Holy
British,
fuck.
because everyone who's British is in it, so I could definitely picture him like this guy. I can definitely picture him being in it. Colin Firth is in it, even this guy from Kingsman's in it, but not.
I watched all 45 minutes of that movie, and and Robert Pattinson I thought was the guy. Anyway, so
He's
moving
way
on.
too old. He must be 32 if I had to guess.
All right, there's been plenty of 32-year-olds who played 18-year-olds. In
Yeah,
movies,
but the guys who played it in 1917 are like literally
18.
19
Yeah,
years
so-
old.
Okay, all right, good
They're young
point
as
taken.
shit.
All right, so
Not important.
this
Sorry.
is good content. It's funny.
I just yeah, we're chatting
it's
it up.
funny shit. So, anyways, Ron Pattinson bites Kristen Wiggins.
Stewart.
Wiggins.
You don't have to look it
whatever
up.
her name
Kristen
is. So
Stewart.
he bites her, and then she starts like really getting fucked up. Her veins start showing up on her neck, and it's
Yeah.
really a mess, and whatever it is. That seems to be how it goes all the way back to Nosferatu. The
transformation.
The transformation process is
Yeah.
very identical. So you get bit. So now we're past patient zero to multiple.
Love
get
at
bitten.
first bite.
Love at first bite. Joe does a better accent than I do. So they're there. They come to their vampires now, and now they have mostly non vulnerabilities, but they do have like 5 or 6 things that can. They can live to 8,000 years old plus maybe even 1,000,000 years old if they really just are careful.
Just keep taking that blood.
But Joe, there's a couple things that can take down a vampire.
But let's get what they do besides before we get to killing them.
Oh sure, yeah.
There's can't be seen in a mirror, cast no shadow. We're not usually a problem because you're not out in the daylight.
Cast no shadow?
Yeah.
Dude, have you seen Nosferatu? The whole movie's about shadows.
I know, but that's not a weird vampire thing that they don't cast a shadow.
The movie's from 1922. The whole movie is that when the shadow comes upon you, you know it's game over.
Yeah. Well, as we go into the different vampire
That's based
things.
off the book of Dracula, too.
Yeah.
And they got sued for that. Anyways, moving on.
They got sued? I didn't even know that.
We'll get to that in pop culture.
Oh, sorry.
We'll get to that. Right, no spoiler alert.
There's the there's all kinds of versions because not every vampire can do all these things. Obviously, the sparkly boy in Twilight can't do things like maybe turn into a bat, command wolves, command goats.
I don't want to talk about Twilight a lot.
I know. I'm just saying, like, that's a version of something.
Pop culture
You're
bothers
like,
me.
wait a minute, in this movie they couldn't do this. Like, yeah, they change it for every single one. Like, transform into bats or maybe a swarm of bats. You can turn into a shadow yourself and slink around a room invisibly. You can, use magic. A lot of vampires in pop culture can even use, like, magical powers, like a magician.
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have, like blood magic or seduction.
Seduction's a huge one.
Sure, yeah. Or the vampire's thrall, like you become actually pinned to their spirit, and you have to do what they say.
And
through magic.
what's the word for this? Vampires can also use. It's like deception mixed with persuasion. Where if you say
subterfuge.
So here's an example. I don't know the word for this because
I can think of it.
Because it's past 6 p.m. and we're vampires now. If you drank the blood of a human and they're dead on the floor, and a cop comes in because they heard a disturbance,
right? And
the cop comes in, you can say before they walk in, "There's nothing going on here. You don't see everything is very normal." They walk in and they hypnotism.
Hypnosis.
You can vampires absolutely can hypnotize anyone on the spot and say they can walk into a room full of blood splatter on the walls and say you don't see anything crazy at all. There's no blood splatter. And the cops walk in.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
They go. Your air conditioner's installed properly. There's no smoke alarms in here. That's what they notice. They don't notice that there's a murder scene because you said there's no murder scene here, and they go
hypnotism.
But then they notice the smoke alarm. They go. There's no smoke alarm here. We're going to write you guys up. And they go, oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Hypnotism, big thing for vampires.
Yeah.
You can hypnotize you to think whatever they need you to think.
And it makes sense because it's hard to survive as this, cursed being when everyone and the whole society around you is going to, if they find out about you, they're going to want to kill you immediately. But you have to use all this trickery to be like, I'm not even here.
Trickery, big thing.
You are the shadow.
And they typically, the thing is, the thing with vampires is for them to stay prosperous, they have to live amongst other people.
Right.
So they can't just live in the woods and never talk to them. They have to be around people, so they have to use trickery. Yeah. So we did trickery, shadows,
all kinds of powers
mirror
they might have.
Powers. Yeah. They can fly. Mm-hmm. They can fly. They can fly just like James and John's Peach does. Up there on the fucking thing. But they fly alone like Superman. They can do that. No, I'm not sure if you guys know that, but vampires, according to Dracula's book in the 8th...
They don't need to become a bat to fly. They can just fly.
They can fly. They can also become a bat and fly.
Right.
And just disappear and peace out.
Yeah. Swarm of bats.
And that's a good start.
Yeah.
We gotta sneeze real quick. Big sneeze.
Yeah, excuse me. My fangs fell out. Oh. Just kidding.
His fangs are in.
Those are good fangs. They stay in you through the sneeze.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Let's now get into how do we stop these cursed menaces from killing everyone around us? How do you kill a vampire?
How do you kill a vampire? It takes knowing a vampire to kill one. So vampires, the first thing you notice is a lot of them sleep upside down like a bat, and they avoid daylight. The first start is avoiding daylight.
Right.
The sun will light them on fire. Literally light them on fire.
Yeah.
And fire kills vampires.
Right.
That's the first start. Is that if you can add the sunlight to them, it's over for them.
Yeah. Get them out in the daytime.
Second thing is if you find a vampire that you love and they also don't want to eat you, but you do need to kill them, you can give them love locklet or whatever we call those necklaces made of silver, and it will start to burn their skin.
Oh, silver put in there.
Silver burns their skin.
It's like werewolves in that way, where they can't have that silver on them.
Yeah, silver burns skin. Next thing is, which stems from actual facts of people who believe that vampires were generally real and past, is a wood stake through the heart.
Yeah.
And the reason behind that is because when people in the past sort of display that, they would bury these people and then they would come out of the grave. So they realized they could, if they nailed them to the coffin, they wouldn't rise out of the grave. Yeah. So the wood stake through the heart would nail them to the grave, to the coffin itself.
Sure. Even if you are alive, you can't get back out. Which I think a lot of those cases, though, are really people who were declared deceased before they actually were deceased, and they tried to survive being buried alive.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. But that's why the wood stake thing is a thing.
That makes sense.
You can cut their head off. Classic way to make sure that no one, even zombies, come back.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that even the undead, if you cut their head off, they're dead, much like living people.
Yeah. Much like living people. You cut their head off.
You can blow their arms and legs off, they're still alive, like a zombie or like a living person. But if you cut their head off, they're dead, much like a living person.
100% dead.
Very similar, those undead and
those undead people still living. Have a biological function for the brain. And
they still can't survive.
If you separate the brain from the body, it's usually a good way to make sure that they don't come out of the ground.
The undead curse isn't enough to change that aspect of their humanness. Your head goes off, you're gone with it. That's enough for you.
And did we mostly cover it?
Yeah, it's crosses and garlic are the other two big ones.
Garlic and crosses,
which is
and
especially odd.
Crucifix. It says in all the definitions, it's actually crucifixes, not just crosses.
Yeah, sorry, crucifix.
Actual crucifix. Which, if those listeners don't understand the difference between crucifix and cross, is a crucifix has Jesus Christ nailed to it.
Jesus on it there. They're really making it a cross. The real crucifix. But yeah, I thought that was also interesting for Vlad the Impaler too. Being a Christian man, he probably had crucifixes all over his castles and his monasteries, but didn't stop him.
Yeah, that's a thing that we don't. We're just telling you the facts. Yeah. We're not trying to explain why Vlad the Impaler was a Christian.
Well, there's also, I'm sure, 1 million Christians that thought he was the devil too, and they were also Christians.
Right.
The thing about Christianity and all religions is that it's not a unified front. Someone can declare themselves that, and then you are that. I believe in Jesus, and then you go and murder 40 people in Waco. You're still as Christian as the other person, even though I say that's not a real Christian, but it is. They believe they are. Vlad the Impaler believes he was.
It's a good way to see.
And the Pope Francis believes he is too. I think that he's probably more accurate than Vlad the Impaler, but they both believe they're followers of Christ.
Yeah. So if you go under that persona as I'm a follower of Christ, people go, oh well, he can't be.
Yeah, it can't be that bad, right? Yeah, because he's Christian.
Yeah, but no, I didn't read anything about him having crucifixes all over his house.
They gotta be all over the place in that fucker. During the Crusades, it was like their fucking, fight song, their big flag and the da-da-da-da-da.
Yep, exactly. So,
but garlic, do you see anything about garlic?
I don't know
it's pretty universal to me for a lot of vampires. Like, garlic will get you. I don't know why that
If I had to speculate, which I'm doing right now.
Please, speculate.
Garlic is an antiseptic to a certain extent, and it's also an antiviral. And most of
the burning flavor of it actually is killing microorganisms.
Have you ever eaten a clove of garlic?
Alcohol.
Have you ever eaten a clove of garlic?
I mean, maybe when my mom first bought a garlic press, I ate one to see what it was like, but I don't think
before it was cooked.
Yeah, like when you crack it in the press.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was like though, so I can't tell you if I.
Well, I'll tell you. So garlic's amazing as an herb or whatever the fuck it is. Mm-hmm. If you crush garlic and let it sit for like 15 minutes, there's a chemical reaction that happens with oxygen or carbon dioxide or nitrogen or whatever's in the air. That makes a new chemical called allicin. Mm-hmm. And allicin is an antiviral. And most of the vampire stories we hear about are during plague times. Yeah,
people who are like, they get so sick, you look like they're living dead, and you're like, I was going to keep it away.
Antiviral, antibacterial. And most of this time is the Black Plague was a big theme in vampirism. So garlic is before modern medicine and before antibiotics, which the Black Plague was a bacteria, not a virus.
Yes.
Garlic is generally a great way to rid your body of bacteria and viruses of all sorts, good and bad.
That's got to be it.
Yeah. I think so.
That's
like, hey, someone's
you
really
nailed it.
deathly sick, and we give them a ton of garlic, and all of a sudden they start to get better.
And all the doctors are wearing garlic all over themselves.
Yeah.
All that. What was the name of that chemical again?
Allison.
Allison. That's so
ALICIN. It's not the same as the name, but like it's.
What's up, Allison?
But if you
yeah.
guys do want to like be healthy in some way or feel sick or whatever it is, if you crush garlic, let it sit on the counter for a while and then eat it. It's different than just crushing and eat it. You let it sit for a while. The chemical reaction, the oxidization
In the
of
air.
it makes Allison. It's a whole new thing.
I had a little bit of garlic in my meal.
So that could be the practical reason behind garlic, is that people would get sick from the plague and then start going crazy.
Yeah.
And they give them garlic and they start to get
But
better.
unlike a wooden crucifix, the garlic would actually see. So pretty good. So let's put the monster.
Welcome back to the basement. We missed you so terribly. Seriously, it gets really, really boring in here without anyone showing up. No one comes in, and I'm inviting them in.
All right. So we talked about the history of vampires. We talked about what makes a vampire. Well, it can be so many things, changing throughout. Let's get into the vampires we know, the vampires we all know and love, the vampires of popular culture.
We're ready.
So, would you like to start with the earliest
Yeah.
in pop culture?
Yeah. You
Beyond,
start with him, man. Yep.
I mean, the earliest one that we could usually think of, besides the idea of like the Strigoi or the creatures in the night that haunt you, is clearly Bram Stoker's book.
Clearly Bram Stoker's book.
Yeah, it's called
Clearly.
Dracula. It's the fucking Bible for being a vampire. It's the whole thing. The count that lives up in his castle in Transylvania has to seduce a fair maiden and come in and take her blood, or he could be chosen to give her the gift of vampirism herself, and then she becomes a vampire altogether there. That's the classic beautiful attire, the cape, the charm, and the seduction
The
of
charm
a
and
vampire.
the
Count
like,
Dracula.
very well dressed, slicked hair.
Yeah.
Dracula, and this is 1897 when this book was published. And it's a book
Mm-hmm.
because movies weren't around yet.
Right, they didn't have cinema yet. But yeah, interestingly, I have never read the book, but I've seen the movie version, which is classic because I don't read books at all. But it's kind of, it's not exactly like an idea of like a horror movie of being like the telling you what's happening like a screenplay. It's more of this person goes to this castle in Transylvania to meet this guy, Count Dracula, and like learn about him. And you're like, well, this guy is creepy and all that shit. He gets sent a carriage full of horses that don't have anyone leading the charge. And it's all creepy shit you'd imagine. And the whole book is from the perspective of this English writer who went there to be like investigating, like kind of like a journalist. It's like an 1800s version of like a journalist being like, who is this eccentric count up here? And obviously he comes to find out, the story goes on, this guy's a fucking vampire.
The deal is a fucking
He's
vampire.
the vampire.
So that's the modern day vampire start that we know.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is what upsets me the most. Is
What does?
the start of this is that the integrity of the vampire has been compromised
very passionate about this.
every day since this book was published.
That was the peak, and it's just been going
The
down.
peak of the rules we just gave about what made a vampire,
Yeah.
what makes a vampire.
Sure.
And then that book in 1897 was that this is very much like vampires are, like I said, binary is not the word. What I say?
That's a dichotomy.
Dichotomy is that it's two things. For them to live, they need to drink blood from people. And that book expresses that so black and white that this is what it is. Like, it's like, cool, you can live forever, but you were a human being, you understand the vulnerabilities and the challenges it takes to be a human, so you understand the victims you're eating, they don't really want to kill people. It's not like they're serial killers where they just want to like fucking just kill people for the sake of it. They're like, we have to do this.
That's why they call it feeding in a lot of vampire.
Yeah, they're feeding and they have
culture.
victims and it's whatever. So they're not necessarily serial killers in the way that they're just like randomly just want to fucking kill people.
Right.
They just it's something they have to do. So that's the start of it. And that book expresses that so much. That's the start of the modern day vampire. Started in 1897.
That's why everything's a Dracula from there on out. That's the gold standard.
Exactly.
And not the silver standard. Ah!
So
anyway, so what about the movie we were talking about? That's like the earliest version in cinema.
Where does Elizabeth Bathory fit into this? What timeline?
This just because I have this up, this is only so we don't look at the camera.
No, that's fine. But what date? What's her years? Because that would help us out a lot.
Will it? Because we're still in pop culture. This is 15.
This is real. Okay, cool.
This has what I'm looking at right now.
Just
Has nothing to do with the thing we're talking about. It's just so we
not saying pop culture. So all right, so we'll move.
I'll keep it on the piss jars.
I think right from Dracula, the book.
Put it in there.
We can go into Nosferatu.
That's what I was teeing you up
Next
for.
step. Okay, Nosferatu is a movie that was made in 1922. It's a silent film. And for those of you out there who are intimidated and scared by silent films, you absolutely do not need to be about this movie. It's about 2 hours long, maybe an hour and a half, I forget. And it follows almost an identical plot to the Book of Dracula, but it's not at all with the same people. But it has nothing to do with...
It's cool looking and spooky too, especially for what did it come out, 1920 something?
22.
That's crazy.
1922.
It's worth a look. And if you don't already know what this character looks like, you've seen him in SpongeBob. In the Hatchling and Slasher episode, the Hatchling and Slasher at the end, they're like, who's turning the lights on and off? And they go, Nosferatu, and he's in the closet turning the lights on and off.
That's a great point. I didn't realize
It's the first time I ever saw him. And then,
and me too. I didn't realize it. Yeah.
So that's who it is, Nosferatu.
Yeah, Nosferatu is a very similar plot where it's actually really funny. This guy who I thought his name was Butter, because again, the thing with silent films is they're not what you think. It was the first and only silent film I've ever seen.
Is he a Buster Keaton one?
What?
Nah, nothing. There's like comedy ones where it's kind of easier to watch because it's like physical comedy. You don't have to read it all the time.
Right. Yeah. So, but you just made a good point. Is that Nosferatu is like, again, 9 out of 10 movies or shows I watch, I have to put subtitles on anyways because I can't fucking hear anyone. So, Nosferatu just basically gives you essentially subtitles to the movie, and it's like watching a movie today. It's really strange. Like, I was like, oh, I got this down completely.
But they also work better with the medium because they know they can't have the sound, so they have to be more physical and more like action-y, and like their shots are like deliberately this is going to be like this. You can't just like whisper something in someone's ear. You have to like enact it, and it makes it much more like dynamic. Yeah,
and it works so well. It's almost like this movie is way ahead of its time. So watch it. If anyone's listening, just fucking watch it. I'm serious.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about this guy named his name's actually Hutter, but it looks like Butter because it's old English writing. So Butter and Ellen are a young couple, and Butter is like owns some property or something. He meets this real estate agent, generally a real estate agent in Germany, who says, I got this letter from like Count Dracula, and he wants to buy, or his name's Nosferatu, he wants to buy some property in Germany, but he's up in Transylvania, and this is a good deal. Yeah. And so then he takes like a multi-month journey to go to Nosferatu, aka Dracula's castle, to go say, hey, yeah, sure, you can come buy the shit.
Those old trips are so much commitment. I always like, if I have to drive 2 hours and I don't have someone's cell phone number, I'm nervous that I can't text them that I'm outside.
Yeah.
I can't imagine traveling for a month and being like, I hope they're there when I get there.
Yeah.
If they're not, what the fuck are you going to do? You're stuck at 3 months away from where you live, and you're like, oh, I guess they lied.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, exactly. And
now you're just there.
And exactly. And Nosferatu is buying a fucking whole bunch of property for the equivalent of like $1. And he takes a couple months journey to get $1. Swallowing up real estate in the city, in a country away from his, and he.
I want to buy your property.
Pretty much, and Butter gets there, and then he eventually gets. He starts. He finds this like it's like a pocket Bible.
Yeah.
That is like this vampire thing, and then says like, watch out for this guy who can do this thing. He meets him. He's like, he is generally just like Dracula with the big fingers and this stuff. And
but he's bald though, which is strange.
He's bald.
He looks more like a corpse, more like the classic like Strigoi like undead person rather than like the swarthy dude with nice hair and a nice suit on. He looks like he's a dead person that's alive.
Yes, exactly. And then he goes there and does the negotiations, and Dracula signs, or Nosferatu signs a contract and whatever it is. But he gets bit by the vampire a few times. It's wicked fucked up. And then the whole point,
There's the whole thing.
I'm trying to summarize this really quickly. And then Nosferatu can only stay alive a long period of time by being surrounded by the dirt of the plague.
The plague dirt,
So the plague comes with Nosferatu. Watch the movie for yourself, but it's excellent. It's a 10 out of 10 in my book for movies.
Right.
It's actually really, really good. So that's in pop culture. Nosferatu came out, and fun fact, the wife of...
Butter?
No. The wife, she has... I don't want to spoil it, but... No, the wife of Bram
Stoker?
Bram Stoker sued the director or the writer of Nosferatu because they stole the plot of Dracula. They're not related and they hate each other.
That's
But
interesting.
it's almost the same plot.
They could keep suing people now, even up until Twilight.
And they sue them and they got money from it because it's like the same thing.
Wow.
But that's in pop culture. That started that, and it's a fucking great movie. And it has to do with the plague because it's also set in the 1800s. It's not set in 1922. It's set in like 1860s.
Yeah.
So
let's not forget from our last episode that one of the members of the Cult of the Golden Dawn was Bram Stoker, alongside our old boy there, Aleister Crowley.
yeah.
Another way that our podcast
Dawn.
always builds upon what we've already
It
created.
always does.
That's why you gotta listen to every episode. We want to fucking know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it always does. So Nosferatu, watch it yourself. Pop culture. That's the traditional vampires that we like, and they're more. They don't necessarily look like me. They look like they're in 1800s.
They're Draculas.
They're Draculas. Like they're very. They don't look. It's the same. The rules apply to Nosferatu that they apply to all the Draculas that we've said in history.
That's a Dracula, right?
It's super clear, super clean, super like. All right, this is a classic Dracula movie. So.
So fucking vampire.
Yeah,
what
so
are some
since then
other
there was a lot of
pop culture
other
vampires?
actual Dracula movies that came out for the next 100 years.
Yeah, there's a million versions of the actual character Dracula remakes.
Yeah.
It's obviously Dracula Dead and Loving It, the
Yep.
the one from Leslie Nielsen's in
Yeah,
that.
and he's more like me, where he's slick back hair,
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like this, very polished, clean.
Bela
bow
Lugosi
tie.
playing Dracula is the classic version of it.
That's,
There
what,
is, of
that's
course-
what I'm going for today.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And there's of course the Bram Stoker Dracula movie that came out with Keanu Reeves is playing his worst role ever,
Yeah.
but it's awesome. And Gary Oldman is Dracula, and he fucking kills it.
Gary Oldman.
God damn, is he good in that movie?
Yep. So all the Draculas are the same until a certain time in the history that we all know. And this is where shit gets a little crazy. Is that in the early 2000s, Twilight came out.
Right.
And then they reinvented, chronologically, A Queen of the Damned came out before that.
True. I don't think that either of those were the first time they changed vampires, though.
Can you tell me? 'Cause
Oh
feel
no,
like-
I couldn't. So I
No,
couldn't
but it was more.
people are always fucking with the formula. You
Yeah,
know?
the formula and like what they can, what they can drink animal blood
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But like,
I think 40 Days of Night and Queen of Damned are both before Twilight came out.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
4 Days a Night. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But yeah, and Before Days a Night is kind of more
it's-
mass.
it's zombies with,
zombies
With vampire teeth, and it's set in Alaska, so it's like during the winter, it's dark most of the time.
dark. Yeah,
yeah. So
it's
that's
a good.
cool.
I mean, I don't.
It's a cool idea, but just make it zombies. I mean, I Am Legend
Yeah.
has the same thing where it's nighttime and zombies come out. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with 4 Days a Night. I really don't. Like, I'm
I
like,
enjoyed
it.
it.
Kind of makes.
But as far as
okay.
Draculas go, it's barely even a vampire. It's more like
It's all-
creative zombies.
Well, it's compounding on, okay, so we have a Dracula who bites one person who doesn't die, then all of a sudden they bite more people, and all of a sudden you have 100,000 people, then 1 million, and, that's kind of what's going for.
Zombies.
Where it's like, okay, well, if we were to do the math, this kind of is what it would look like today.
Yeah.
But they apply to the same rules. For the most part. So I don't really have a problem with
But
that.
interesting to now you bring up Twilight. I know the idea of that is that when he turns into a vampire, he asks her to do it. And I'm not sure if it's a one-to-one comparison with the old Draculas, which is that if you're going to be turned rather than fed upon, that you have to buy in. Because a lot of versions of the vampire, the Dracula version is like, if you're going to become a vampire like me, you get the gift and the curse of living forever and being the same age forever.
Yeah.
You have to like buy into it. Almost like I'm going to buy you dinner and I'm going to seduce you and take you out, and you have to let me have sex with you, then where it's good. I can't just like force myself on you. I can't just bite you like a zombie and you accidentally turn into a vampire. You have to like commit and consent to becoming one of the undead. There's some versions it's kind of like a zombie where like if the spit gets on you, like rabies, you become it. But in some versions, the vampire is like, if I bite you, I'll kill you. But if you want to become an eternal lover with me, we can forever be bonded in the undead lifestyle. Where another version we didn't mention is that when you become a vampire, you stay that same age forever. Like that's the age you are. If you become a vampire at 70, you're 70 vampire forever.
Yeah.
You become a vampire at 20, that's who you are forever.
Exactly.
So I thought that's an interesting part of it, where it's more like the, it's almost like signing a deal with the devil. The devil doesn't make you do the shit. He tempts you to do it, and he goes, "All right, sign right here, and you get to live forever."
But
you have to feed on people in the sunlight. Don't worry about all this fine print. You can live forever if you sign up. And I think for me, that's a more classic vampire movie. It's that the charm and like the silver tongued devil part where it's like you have to buy into it. It can't just be like a werewolf or whatever. It would be like, I'm gonna fucking violently attack you. It's like I have to make you want to do this shit, and only then do you realize you're actually being seduced by a vampire. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we covered Dracula.
So get into Queen of the
Nosferatu.
Damned and shit, because then we can rattle through.
Yeah. So now chronologically, we're in Queen of the Damned. So Queen of the Damned is where you first come into, or not first, but this is where with me. You have Aaliyah, who's Akasha. That's who she plays. Aaliyah, R.I.P. You're fucking awesome and you're beautiful. And
too bad she wasn't a real vampire. She'd still be with us.
Too bad. She was beautiful and she's like the queen of it all. But then she had
the damned, if you will.
Queen of the Damned. Yeah. And then you have So she's in the movie as like the queen. But then Lestat is a 800-year-old vampire.
Right. Yeah.
Who comes back to modern day, 2001, 2000-ish, somewhere in there.
It was right after Woodstock 99. People were raring to go.
Yep.
ICP was getting big.
System
of a Down released their first album.
Fuck yes. Great times. Disturbed.
It's a hell of a time. Oh, yeah. Disturbed, too.
Yeah. All these good bands. And he comes back, and obviously Korn, they're almost 10 years old at that point. He has this thing, and he's a vampire, and then he says, I'm gonna be a rock star.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. But it's the first time the first time for me where it really showed that he comes back as a normal person. He changes clothes. He doesn't look like a vampire.
Yeah.
And he's a rock star, and he lures all these girls in.
That's that like a cult of personality seduction part of being a vampire, where you're not like Jack the Ripper stalking them in the night and stabbing them in the back. You're actually being like, you're gonna come to me.
Yeah, I'm a sexy motherfucking.
You can't
rock
wait
star.
to be part of this fucking vampire shit you don't even know about.
Most people know that I'm a vampire, but also some people don't believe it. So he starts having all his orgies and things, and then biting everyone, eating their blood, and then having a kick-ass fucking black rock metal show. Like, it's not black metal, but it's like this is dark, and it's just so goddamn good. That movie is so good. And
that's worth the watch.
And
you might enjoy it more than Nosferatu if you have the less.
Oh, you will. I mean, like
it's fucking killer.
It's all the music is done by Korn, Disturbed, and maybe a couple other bands. It plays along the same timeline as Blade.
Which, I mean, I almost brought that up already. I didn't want to shit on Queen of the Damned, but Blade is another great vampire in pop culture. He is a vampire, but he's also a vampire hunter. Mm-hmm. And I mean, one of the best opening scenes in any movie is that
literally the best opening scene of every movie I've ever seen in my life.
The rave where they have the sprinklers with the blood.
Yeah, and then he's just walking through there, and he's going through, and it's a rave awesome. In a Euro rave in a warehouse,
the real raves,
full of at least 1,000 people, and there's out of 1,000 people, there's 10 of them that are vampires. And they rain blood on everyone. It's the best scene. It's one of the best opening scenes of any movie ever.
Yeah, it's worth watching that movie just for that opening scene. It's
so good.
Cool. But yeah, Blade, another great vampire.
Yeah, again, but the thing is with these movies is why I like them is because they still comply to the same rules of vampires.
They do, yeah.
Nothing really changes that much with Queen of the Damned and with Blade.
I mean, you have to follow obviously everyone has their own artistic license, but if you follow closely to the archetype, that means it's a vampire. If you want to have your vampire not drink blood and not be undead and not, it's like, well, at that point, just make up a new word for it, make a new thing.
Yeah,
don't call it a vampire then.
Yeah, exactly. But the vampires in Blade and in Queen of the Damned still apply that dichotomy they're alive forever, and Lestat in Queen of the Damned still has to he has to seduce women. He chooses women because he likes to have sex. And he has these big things. Then he kills them all and drinks their blood. Yeah. There's no like, hey, I'm gonna put a bunch of meat in a blender and then squeeze it out in a filter and drink the blood from that to you know have this thing. But I might not be as good, but I still can do that. This is like no, it's just human blood at that point. Like,
you gotta eat people.
You gotta do human blood. So
I mean, it's almost like you're cheating the system, right? It's like cheating God. It's like, well, I'm not actually working on the Sabbath if I hire a goy to turn my oven on for me. It's like, don't you think that God would have thought that through? You can't just cheat your way out of it. You can't really cheat your way out of being a vampire, being like, oh, I'm just going to drink animal blood in a glass. Like, the deal is you got to kill people and eat their blood. That's the deal. You can't, that's the deal. It's kind of blood. It's like, no, you can't be all scientific. It's not scientific at all. It's magical. It's a curse. You have to eat people's blood to live.
Yeah, and
that's your thing.
And that's why I talk about the integrity of a vampire. And it's as we get further,
or a Dracula, it's
getting more compromised. So again, Queen of the Damned and Blade are kosher. They're kosher, right?
They're kosher. No shellfish in the vampire blood. What can I say? It's kosher.
Exactly what I'm saying. So
well, let's roll through a couple other.
So now we're getting into things now we're moving from kosher to non-kosher for vampires.
All right, go with you.
And it's a quick study.
Yeah, these aren't all kosher. I just want to bring other famous vampires in pop culture. I'm not going to summarize the entire fucking movie every time. First of all, we already mentioned him before. The Count from Sesame Street. Awesome.
Yeah.
One bat, two bat. Classic guy. I mean,
he counts things.
He's a not scary vampire. He's very weird. He does count.
It's for kids because he just counts seeds, so he might.
I love
but
him.
when the camera's off, no one knows what he's doing.
No, obviously he's undead, so he must suck the blood.
No one knows.
And him being a Muppet vampire, I assume that he drinks Muppet blood. I don't know that for fact, but I don't know if he kills other cast members besides Muppets or if Muppets have blood. But I figure if you're a human vampire, you drink human blood. If you're a cow vampire, you drink cow blood. If you're a Muppet vampire, you drink Jim Henson's blood.
Since there's money...
That's how he died.
Since there's money...
They won't tell you that. The media won't tell you that.
Yeah. From Joe from the Joe and Dylan Basement podcast.
Yep, it's a new version. It's Joe and Dylan Basement podcast. Jim Henson died from the Count drinking his blood, and he was happy to do it.
And anyone who questions
he consented.
Please email us at dylanjoebasement@gmail.com if you think this is not true.
It's a way cooler way to die than not going to the doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's how he died.
We can't say because we haven't been there in person. We live on the other side of the country where that's filmed, so it's kind of hard for us to investigate in person.
Right.
Unlike
not
the orange monoliths. Anyway,
no, those will go in person to investigate.
Yeah, we go in person
or on the ground.
So these are things that are kosher for the most part.
What other pop culture ones? Another one for kids, Count Chocula.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't drink blood.
He drinks chocolate.
Yeah,
he does like.
But he's still a vampire. He still has a castle, and he has friends that are other, monsters like Boo Berry and Frankenberry.
Yep.
But Count Chocula is still the Count. He's still the one in charge, and I assume he was made of chocolate because he feeds on chocolate to survive.
That's true. But I don't remember him eating chocolate, but Joe does.
Yeah, I guess he never really eats chocolate, but just there's always oozing like milk geysers in the commercials. There's all these cereal commercials they use all CG to be like, oh, here's all the chocolate milk and stuff.
Sounds a lot like a vampire Deception.
I never really see him just like feasting on a bar of chocolate, but he definitely eats the cereal in the commercial, and you have to.
But maybe it's Deception. Because they can do that to us. So
yeah, you could be Count Bloodula, but he just calls himself Chocolate.
Yeah. Something. It says that it's hydrolyzed, wheat grain and
really?
Cocoa leaf, but it's actually blood.
It's hemoglobin.
No one knows. Literally, no one knows. So
no one knows.
So now we get into things that piss me the fuck off. So,
if you want to get through, I want to run through other pop culture shit just for fun.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
No. I want you to finish your diatribe on why you're mad at what the state of vampires today. Do you want to say that for final thoughts, actually? Because I feel like you have a lot to say for that. I don't want to step on you.
No. This will not.
Okay. I just don't want to step on your shit because I feel like
step on my own.
I feel like you already satisfy yourself. Step on my own
shit.
For a good analogy, I feel like you're already fed twice on your disdain for new vampires. Now, I thought you were satisfied, but the hunger, as we know, it never satiates. You're never not thirsty as a vampire, as we are now. Do you want to go into the diatribe of that, or do you want to just do more fun?
No, I want to get pop culture out of the way, and then I'm going to say what my problem is because I don't think that they step on each other's shit. So
okay.
So next up in the way things go is that around generally right after, maybe 5 years after Queen of the Damned came out, Twilight.
Yeah, right. My probably one of the most famous vampire properties of all time.
Probably the most,
Probably the
unfortunately.
I mean, other than maybe just Dracula itself, more people know about it. But Twilight made way more money than Dracula ever
No
did.
question, yeah.
Yeah.
So Twilight, you guys know the plot. We don't need to say anything before it besides that it just changed the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
They personalized people. They're like, oh, they're in your high school.
Started out as a 50 Shades of Grey fan fiction.
Not really, no shit.
Yeah.
And
And then the woman went
makes
on
sense.
to make multi-million-dollar books.
Yeah. So
Vampires are horny. That's the thing. You have to keep the horniness in. I think.
You do.
For me, that's part of it.
It is. Yeah.
Sexuality is part of being a vampire.
Yeah.
It's not just corpses coming back to life. That's necromancy. That's zombies. It's got to be sexy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sexy man, sexy chicks, whatever it is. And
Sorry,
that-
please.
and they're in high school and they're whatever it is. And that started to get people like really into it because it's not
Because another movie that preceded that, which is very sexy vampire-y, before Queen of the Damned,
Sure.
it's a Lost Boys.
I never saw it.
Great vampire fic,
Dude,
80s.
I know. It's
High
the one I
schoolers,
should
sexy,
see this in Europe,
smoking
in
cigs,
England.
fucking
Yeah.
hanging out with chicks, and meanwhile, it's that idea of eternal youth, and you're gifted and you're cursed because all this whole gang of vampires, they get to be the kings of the town forever, but then they're always young and they have no fulfillment in life. They're just always fucking around forever. And all they're trying to do is get more and more guys to join their gang of psycho, ruffian, sexual assaulters
Lost
and shit.
Boys. Good, great reference. It had to be said.
Kept the vampires, kept the weirdness, a little bit of a twist in the 80s. Kept it sexy though.
Yeah, had to be said. So you have Twilight. You guys know the deal with Twilight, but it did say that like all of a sudden they can really be in society and really choose and really be sexy and do the thing and blend in and like be a normal person next to you and this type of stuff. So like
makes it easier to make it a fun high school romance than actually having to live in a castle.
it's like mass disclosure with UFOs. You have to make it seem more real than not.
Yeah.
And they started to say like, oh, okay, so now Twilight paved the way for again, everyone here has probably seen it for the most part or understand it. This paved the way for American Horror Story this year.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is that we covered everything. Now we have American Horror Story.
We did not cover everything.
Please tell me more.
That's why I was asking you. I was like, do you want to be done with it or not? Are we doing American Horror Story?
I'm not
guys?
giving my
I'm
opinion
fine.
yet.
You can't think of any other vampires and anything else? Just try to give me one right now. There's a million of them.
A vampire in between that?
Yeah.
Between
Lost Boys is one of them.
2005 and 2021?
Yeah. No, between 1920 and 2021.
Well, we're already in 2001 or 2005, whatever the fuck this came out.
It's true. We
All right, you fill us in, then I'll get it. I'm coming close to 2021. So what do you have?
I feel like I'm Dylan this time, where you're trying to like just drive this point home, and I keep just dragging you away from your.
And that's okay. That makes the beauty and the integrity of the
That's
Dylan
what
Joe
makes it
Basement Podcast.
The best podcast in the fucking world.
It's
the
the best,
combination
and
of the two
we're
of them.
yeah. So
But besides Blade bringing it up, is also Castlevania being that there's Dracula is the main villain in that, and also his son Alucard, which is a half human, half vampire kind of deal, very much like Blade, who he has all the powers of a vampire, but he tries not to be one, but he still has to fade, right? So he hates vampires and he hates monsters because he feels like his father abandoned him and he's one of them, but he still is a vampire. And for all the folks that don't already know, Alucard is pretty weak writing because it's just Dracula spelled backwards.
Wow.
It's like my son, Eoj, who's been sworn to destroy me for all of time. There's also Duckula, which is when Daffy Duck.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
Daffy Duck became Dracula.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool that way. And there's also a Marvel villain who's a Dracula, Morpheus. He's coming up now in a movie starring Jared Leto. It ought to be terrible. I really don't care one way or the other, but I had to bring him up. And the last one, which is one of my favorite ones, I don't think you ever watched this show, but from Adventure Time, Marceline, the vampire queen. She's one of the main characters. She's cool as shit. She's this cool chick who plays a bass that's like shaped like an axe. Her father's like a demon.
Okay.
And she is still a vampire in the way that she's like has all the vampire powers. She can turn into a bat. She can fly without being a bat, like you said. But she has the fangs, and she also has these bite marks on her neck when she became a vampire. But the weird thing about her is that she doesn't have to drink blood; she has to drink red stuff. No. So you can. So she actually eats the color red, not red stuff. Wow. So she take like an apple and put her fangs in it, and it becomes like a white apple.
She's good now. Yeah. Okay.
She's good. But she eats the color red. But she always thirsts to actually kill and destroy people. But she has to go against her nature as a vampire to be like, I don't want to be a nice person. But she's still a really stone cold bitch.
Gotcha.
Which is fun. Hey, that's all my pop culture fun ones.
Okay.
But that brings us into the most modern version of vampires. I think we might have brought the show up in the past just briefly, American Horror Story, when we talked about the circus and clowns and shit.
We did, yeah.
Because it had to have come up during that.
It had to have, yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about that, please.
So I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about American Horror Story double feature.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite season before this one, if you had to say? Just out of curiosity, because some people love the show no matter what. Some people hate some seasons. Some people don't really care one way or the other. What would you say is your favorite season before this one? Because I haven't seen the past couple seasons.
It's a great question for me.
Glad to hear.
Wow, what a question.
Yeah.
I've seen Horror House. I've seen the
Horror House or Whorehouse?
Horror House. I've seen.
I think they had a whorehouse one too, right? Hotel. Yep. I've seen Roanoke. I've seen the Donald Trump one. I've seen. These are all ones I haven't seen.
I feel like there's gonna be another one there too. But overall, like they're hit or miss.
The circus one.
They're hit or miss.
Gotcha. My favorite one is Coven that I saw, which is all about the witches.
Yep. Is that, so? So there's Coven, and then there's also one that came out a few years ago that was like Apocalypse.
No,
similar to Coven.
It
was almost like it was Coven 2.
Oh, I got you. I haven't seen that one.
Yep.
I liked Coven.
Yeah, exactly. So I like 50% of them. I think it's like every other one's good.
That's pretty good batting average for a TV show.
Yep.
You know.
Yep, exactly. The Roanoke one's bad because it became a reality TV show, but overall it had like the makings of a good one, but overall like this reality thing was weird.
Gotcha.
But the newest one
yeah.
is double feature, and it's from what I know it's just called double feature, but it's like the director made like half and half, like this half, which is only 4 episodes in until tonight, and then the other half is Aliens. But this first half is
what? There's Aliens in American Horror Story?
Dude, yeah, they're not. It hasn't come out yet.
That's nuts.
But this half right now is vampires. So what they do is it defies typical vampires.
Right. Yeah.
So you have this guy who's a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, I don't know if we want to give it away right now, but like,
no spoiler if people want to actually watch it.
I don't want to spoil it, but like,
but you still should make your case though.
My case is that
if you're not down for him to make his case against how the show shits on vampires, just tune off now.
But this guy, yeah, that's a great point, Joe. Thanks. This guy goes to P-Town in Massachusetts.
Hey,
he's a writer and whatever. He meets up with the typical American Horror Story cast, and he just has writer's block the whole time for the first episode. Then he meets these guys.
Unlike the usual block problem in P-Town,
cock block, and he meets these people who are on like the New York Times and all these other places who are the best writers of all time, like I don't know their names, but they're amazing. And then they say
the Transylvania Post.
If you that was improv by Joe, and it was perfect. So take this pill, become the best writer in the world, but there's a side effect.
Okay.
They won't tell you what it is. Takes it, realizes that all of a sudden he is the best writer of all time. He gets signed on by Netflix.
Ooh, a deal with the devil. Comes back again.
Take the pill, be the best writer of all time, get signed on by Netflix, get signed on by, I forget the actor they had said was going to play his role.
John Hamm.
Literally everything amazing. But now all of a sudden, he is...
Or John Trans! Sardinia! We're PC!
He's feasting for blood, and there's all these like people outside that are zombies that are like, whatever it was.
They're actual zombies though, not vampire zombies?
They're vampire zombies.
They're vampire zombies, got it.
So you take this pill, and if you are generally you're generally a good writer, you become a better writer. But if you think you are, but you're not, it'll make you this junkie.
Oh,
junkie vampire that just goes for blood, and you do nothing but.
So he actually wasn't that great. He just thought he was.
No, he was.
He was.
So he becomes an amazing writer.
So he actually was.
Yeah. But say you think you're an amazing writer, you think you're an amazing violinist, you think you're an amazing artistical person, but you're really not. It makes
he's down writing, being like, I want to suck your blood, not good enough.
Yeah.
I longingly pine to feast upon your hemoglobin.
So if you
not good enough.
if you are part 3 of what Joe didn't write on the paper right there,
I didn't take the deal with the devil, so I'm not good enough of a writer to write. I want to suck your blood. Macaulay Culkin's in it.
Macaulay Culkin's in it.
Holy shit!
It's the first time he's shown up since fucking Home Alone.
Oh, he's in Party Monster, but
sorry, I didn't count that because it doesn't count. So, it's this whole thing, but the whole point is that he can, as a vampire who's successful, he goes to the grocery store and he buys like 100 pounds or maybe probably 10 pounds of meat.
Not garlic, obviously.
He squeezes the blood out of it and then drinks the blood.
Yeah.
And he's able to sustain himself for a little bit.
He's half-assing his vampire
Yeah.
contract. He signed with the devil. The devil is one thing, if nothing else. He's a stickler for the rules.
Yes.
The contract is the contract.
Exactly. But as I watched it, it doesn't give him enough.
No.
Yeah.
Not enough.
He can have some blood, but he needs human blood. So the integrity of the vampire is shifting a little bit.
Yeah.
And he can go out in public, do things. He's in the daylight. A lot of the rules are broken a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's
in the
why,
daylight's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, that's why. But maybe that changes. I'm only in episode 2, but like American Horror Story, they're taking the Dracula from the 1800s and they're morphing it in today's day, but it's not the same. Like it's just not as black and white. So and so to speak.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So modern day American Horror Story, that's where we're at. Double feature.
Mm-hmm.
The rules seem to be changing a little bit where they can take a pill as opposed to these people are amongst us anyways, and there's only one way to be a vampire, one way to not be a vampire.
Yeah, I kind of seem to do that limitless thing. If you have this one pill, you can use 100% of your brain, you become the best of whatever you are.
Exactly.
More of the deal with the devil.
So I just get irritated because I'm like, one, me and Joe are not here to tell you that vampires aren't real. But American Horror Story is telling you that there's like another way to do this. And it seems a little bit like the integrity is compromised a little bit, and that's where it bothers me.
I hear that for sure.
So that's in pop culture today. I'm sure there's more mentions, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, so let's wrap up pop culture with this, and then obviously every other vampires that we missed. I'm sure we missed a million of them. Throw them in the comments here. Let us know how stupid we are for not thinking of certain stuff. We did say Duckula though, so don't fucking hit me up with that.
Or email us at dylanjoe@basement@gmail.com.
Let's hear it. But yeah, I wanted to wrap it up with one of my favorite quotes about pop culture vampires, and I don't remember if the author is attributed or not. If it is, I will put it up in the video. If not, it could just be one of those anonymous things. But it's one of my favorite versions of this, where the guy's talking to his son about how to write books, a writer. It kind of ties into that. And he goes to his son. I will find the source for this. He goes, "How do you kill a vampire?" And his son's like, "Oh, I don't know." And he goes, "Sure you do. How do you kill a vampire?" And his son goes, "Stake through the heart, crucifix, garlic." And he goes, "No." Is sunlight? No. And he's like, this, that, the other thing. And the guy's like, "You want to know how to kill a vampire? Any way you want to. Because vampires aren't fucking real. And whatever way you write it is how you kill a vampire. If the vampire is you take a pill in American Horror Story, become a good writer, that's a vampire. If a vampire is Dracula, you have to put a stake through his heart. It's just as likely, because in my head, it was a perfect pivot into our real vampires. Vampires aren't fucking real, so you can kill them any way you want to. The same way that Spider-Man gets his powers. You write it down.
This is what the guy says.
No, the guy just said, you can kill vampires any way you want to, because they're not fucking real. That's what he's saying.
That's what he's saying.
Now it's my opinion.
That's not what we're saying.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Well, we're not there yet. Are we there now?
That's how I'm wrapping up pop culture vampires, is that you can kill a vampire any way you want to. If you're in American Horror Story, if you're in fucking Looney Tunes episode, whatever, you can change the rules because the rules are ever flowing. The concept of vampire is a concept in our culture the past 200 years. That's interesting. The 40 Days a Night, the Twilight, the Dracula, the American Horror Story, they're all fucking up our version of the Dracula mythos.
But it's written.
But it's all just as valid. It's all made up stories about monsters. Well, how come you can't kill Dracula by becoming a vegan or something? It's all written. I wouldn't like it, but it's not like it's against the rules. The rules are for a mythical beast that doesn't exist. So you can kill a Dracula the same way you can kill an idea, which is just change your idea about it.
Unless
Yeah.
we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna get back to are they here today?
If you don't enjoy Basement Podcast, something to sink your teeth into.
Alright, so we talked a bit about all the pop culture vampires. We didn't forget the monsters. We thought about that when we were taking a piss, so don't fucking comment that. Or do.
Don't do it.
Either way. So now we want to talk about people who are actually real vampires. Vampires in the real world throughout time. So beyond the times of our ancient writings about undead, or even our medieval writings and scriptures about people who are accused of being vampires, we want to talk about the idea of vampirism in the real world. Not just the idea of in the books and the rules and things like this.
Pop culture and stuff.
No. Yeah, not just the idea in books. Like the real people who could really be accused of being true vampires, perhaps living longer than natural lives, and for certain feasting on the blood of others.
For certain, that's the common denominator.
Yeah. So I had a couple people that came up in history. The most famous of which, besides Vlad the Impaler, for accusation of being a vampire, is Elizabeth Bathory, who was a countess in Hungary, just a stone's throw away from Transylvania, actually one of the countries that he was begging for support for in that war. They never showed up. But she was so famous for this because she might be the most prolific serial killer of all time.
Yeah.
People call her the most prolific female serial killer, but I can't think of another man serial killer who killed 600 people personally for their own blood feast. I mean, you can
for
think,
that specific reason.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of people.
Vlad killed 100,000 people, but it wasn't.
Right, but would you call him? Would you call
this.
him a murderer? You know what I mean?
I mean, he's a murderer the same way as
Yeah,
a lot
sure,
of other people are, but not just for their blood. He
Yeah,
didn't care.
I mean, like
might
George
have drank
Bush
the
is
blood or
responsible
whatever.
for the death of probably 100,000 people. Would you call him a serial killer? I wouldn't. I think that they're all serial killers, but the way you describe the word in modern days is more like this person is going for a personal journey to murder one other person for their own satisfaction, whether that be justified morality or sexuality or bloodlust, whatever you have. She is more close to that. She wasn't like Vlad the Impaler killing thousands of people to send a message or for his own fun to win a war. She was doing this on her personal time. And a lot of people say it's because she believed she could vampire her way into immortality.
Yeah.
Which is why all of her victims, which may number up to 600 or more, it's hard to track, are all young women. She wanted to kill them, take their blood, take their life force, and become immortal and be young forever. Which I'm sure is a thought and want of a million people at the time, man or woman, countess or peasant. I want to live forever, I want to be beautiful forever. But the difference is, she had the power to do it because she ruled a whole entire county, a nation, and she could actually decide whether or not things were going to go down. So she could just have people dragged off the street, usually girls who were homeless, orphaned, and she'd have her servants take her into her castle. She'd cut them open, torture them, and then famously bathe in their blood.
Bathe in their blood.
Believing that that would actually take that life force, that vampiric tendency to suck the blood of someone and try to keep them alive forever. And on trial, that she's eventually brought up because they found out that after 120, 200 girls go missing, no big deal, they don't matter. But after 600 starts tagging up, let's do something
That's a
about
big
this.
deal.
Come on, that's a little bit too many. And the only reason why you have the number that big is because her servant actually was so closely working with her. She saw these girls get murdered, tortured, and their blood get drained. And she could read Elizabeth's diary, which she would count off people that she killed, much like a count.
Much like
or
a
a
count.
countess.
They always count things.
And if there was ever a candidate for a true vampire in the mythical sense, I mean, it is a person who has the sway, has the power to bring that in, and has that hypnotism to make people ignore their feats as they go on murdering 600 young girls and either bathing in their blood or, in some points, just dismembering them and throwing them away. But I thought that was interesting that Elizabeth Bathory is a part of history. It's only about 100 years to 200 years after Vlad's reign.
Yep.
It's right next door.
Yeah, they thought blood was the secret to immortal life.
Yeah.
Blood. Young blood. Change my blood with someone else's blood, and I'll live forever.
I shall remain forever. My other two are modern times, so I'm going to let you go into other vampires of history if you don't mind popping off on us right here. Real life vampires, folks.
Ready for my descendants of Vlad the Impaler? That's
Yes.
what we're saying?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so we have Vlad the Impaler, who died again in the
Vlad Dracula!
late 1400s. But then came the Comte Saint-Germain.
Saint-Germain?
Saint-Germain, in the same area. And Comte Saint-Germain was the first person that I can think of that was really mysterious. And
Wait a minute, the first person that was ever mysterious?
No, but the first thing I think that no one really knew his background.
In the story, yeah.
Besides, he was a landowner, and that type
He was
of
a
thing.
Land Rover, he was a midnight smoker.
That's the Fangs talking. And he.
That's the fake talking.
And he was a socialite, much like a lot of other people at the time who didn't really have any real way of income, whatever. But he had a ton of money.
I love that word socialite. Like,
Love
oh,
that one.
it's like a job for people who don't have jobs and just a bunch of money.
No, they wake up and go to parties, and they're like, oh, they like to
I'm a
They like to
socialite.
socialize at extravagant events.
It's like being an influencer.
Again, the record, he was born somewhere around 1690, and some of his major features is that he had a lot of property, beautiful things, just like our friend
Long
Vlad
after
Taylor.
Elizabeth Bathory, yeah.
Yeah, but just so many things. And what he did was he held his parties, and he'd invite people over, and all was good. He'd have big, giant feasts and this type of stuff. But the one thing that he didn't do was eat. He didn't eat food.
Prepared a whole feast and wouldn't even partake.
I mean, partake in it. But what he had was he had a whole room full of decanters of red wine.
Curious.
A lot of red wine, but no one could drink the red wine except for him. So he was always drinking.
I have
red
all
wine.
this food for you. I mean, what the hell? I'm not even gonna eat a bite of it. You're gonna take my wine too? I'm a good host, but there's limits.
Yeah,
that's my wine.
You cannot have his wine. He drank red wine the whole time. Everyone came and go. They left. Whatever it was all good. And then supposedly he died around 100 years old. In the
That's pretty good.
almost
That's pretty good today.
1800. But again, very little records or anything. But he never was saw eating any food. Only drank red wine. There's more to the story, but for time's sake, this is a guy who was a socialite, had tons of parties, people over, drank red wine, never ate food, and that's his thing. So, moving forward, not too long after that, in the early 1800s, comes a guy named Jack Saint-Germain. And Jack Saint-Germain lives in New Orleans. He's in New Orleans, and New Orleans is famous at the time and even to present day as a place where there's a lot more missing people per capita than pretty much anywhere else.
Boogie boogie voodoo magic.
Boogie boogie. And New Orleans is a special place for nightlight, charm, culture, and so much history and missing people.
Yeah, it's charm, yeah.
Yeah. And
Jazz.
and the thing is, this guy, Jack Saint-Germain, could trace his descendants back to the area of Eastern Europe where Count Saint-Germain was from. And Count Saint-Germain, same thing, was known to die in the late 1700s, but there's no record of really anything. They just said this is a thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this guy, Jack Saint-Germain, shows up in New Orleans and has almost identical features. He looks just like him.
Almost like he's a descendant of the actual Saint.
Almost like he's a descendant of the actual Saint-Germain. Count Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
He goes by Jax, and he has the same type of parties, same things, and he has all this red wine, and he has these parties of food, but he only drinks red wine. So something happened. Someone died on his property, or something crazy happened. Besides his regards.
What year are we at now for Jack?
We're in the 1800s. So
Okay.
we're like, there's not a lot of information here at the moment, but
So it's like a late 1800s kind of deal.
yeah, exactly. So and something happened to the property, so the police came. And the second that the police were called because there was an incident or a fight at one of his house's parties,
Yeah.
he fled the party. Police came in, raided the property. They found all this wine, and they poured it out, and they figured out that it was a mixture of human blood and wine. And this is a fact.
Fucking A.
Fucking A. And since then, he hasn't really been
Well, if
seen.
we could test the original Saint Germain's wine, we might find the very same.
Exactly.
Holy fuck!
So even to this day,
Unholy fuck!
the vampire capital of the United States of America is New Orleans. There's a restaurant called a restaurant wine bar type of thing in New Orleans today in 2021 called Saint Germain's.
Mm-hmm.
And
is it his? Or it's just named after the
I
original?
think it's named after him. It's not his.
Interesting.
But to this day in New Orleans, there's a giant vampire culture where there are people who've been arrested for drinking people's blood and stuff like that, where they sound like they're probably just crackheads or whatever. But like,
There's a big drinking culture there, whether it's bourbon,
Yeah.
hurricanes, or blood. People
Yeah.
like to drink in New Orleans.
Exactly. So this, and then he had some the records of his death in the 1800s. But despite that, he's been reported seen all over Europe, and in France, and he's
After his death, or
yeah,
supposed death. I should
people
say.
keep seeing him all over the country and in New Orleans, and
You should take a selfie with him and be like, hey, what's going on? You're Jack St. Germain.
yeah, exactly. So people keep looking at him, and the thing is, people keep going missing daily in New Orleans. And they think that there may be a real vampire who lives there who has an unlimited amount of money, who keeps drinking people's blood.
Mm-hmm.
People go missing. The typical thing where they're like lower members of society who people won't miss.
It's a good place to sit. Just as
Yeah.
Elizabeth Bathory, just take the people who won't be missed, the people who won't be noticed away, and you can get away with it for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Put that cloak of that veil of hypnotism over people. The same version of saying
It's hard.
they
to tell.
walk into a murder scene, they go, "Your fire alarm's not working," right? The same reason say, "Oh, people
Yeah.
go missing in New Orleans all the time." My first thought was, "Of course they do. They're drunk as shit. They're on vacation and they passed out
Yeah.
somewhere and go missing." Or people get taken advantage of, but at the same time, what a great place for a vampire to live amongst all that disappearing people. What's one more missing
Great place.
person?
Exactly. And the rumors say that he's still at large. No one's really found him.
Yeah.
And there's a missing persons case in New Orleans that is like always growing.
Yeah.
And this is a
Much
thing
like
where,
the sea level, it's always growing there.
oh yeah, sure.
Climate change is real.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So he's one person where if you do more research on Jack St. Germain in New Orleans, you'll see that there's something to this.
Interesting.
There really is. Yep.
That is odd. The more recent versions that aren't as like solidified like that, that's a good one. It's traced back to the origins of Vlad and all that shit all the way to New Orleans. These are just ones of people who have been called vampires because unlike finding a bottle of wine or seeing someone who hasn't eaten for a week or you haven't seen them eat, these people were actually convicted and some of them were witnessed eating humans, including drinking human blood. The first of which is famous in Russia as one of the most notorious serial killers and sickos of all time. That's Andrei Chikatilo. If you hadn't heard of him already, he was completely about consuming people and tearing them to smithereens. Unlike some classic killers like Ted Bundy and shit, or even Jeffrey Dahmer being like, "Oh, I have a sexual urge to attack this person, and I'm gonna kill him to complete my shit." Andrei Chikatilo never had an erection until he killed somebody.
Wow.
Spilling blood gave him his first sexual thought, which makes me wonder how his fucking childhood was like. I'm not sure about that whole thing. But the guy was such a fucking killer. He would consume and eat people as his thing. It was no version of murdering for the sake of murdering. It was murdering to dismember and take their blood apart. He was brought into court in Russia in a cage. Picture like Hannibal Lecter.
That's the best example you can think of. Yeah.
This is real life, though. The guy was brought into court in a cage because he was such a demon. They thought that he was eating people to survive, and they were so terrified of this guy because he was such a fucking freak, masochist, sadist, crazy guy. That's the case for him. That's a vampire of Russia. And unlike a lot of these tales here that are much more amazing and magical, this is a real life shit. The same thing goes for Richard Chase in Sacramento, California, in the 70s and 80s. This guy was called the Vampire of Sacramento because he would cut his victims open and drink their blood before or just after they had died. And he was also witness doing this at an occasion when he had people's guts in his mouth. So, unfortunately, he was not going to be living quite as long as maybe Dracula would be because he did kill himself in prison by saving up all his sleeping medication and eating it all at once. I don't know if that's what kills a vampire. We might have to add that onto the list.
Drugs, we have not, there's no real studies on that yet.
Right. But you figure if garlic works, then, synthesized prescription drugs might be the same thing.
Or poison, like
Sure.
all the poison that we discussed on
Cyanide, yeah.
Cyanide and
I feel like polonium should still do good on a vampire. But
polonium still probably.
I feel like
if
it
garlic
will
will work, I feel like that polonium will probably do the job.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's many more people into that, but I thought it'd be worth bringing up people who, there's all these weird, haunting facts about, who's so vindictive. These people were really drinking people's blood. They were killing real human beings, drinking their blood, consuming it, and not only were they doing it habitually, it was their main life goal. People like Richard Chase, all they thought about all day, like we think about getting a cheeseburger or getting laid, was, I can't wait to drink the blood of somebody.
Yeah.
So, even though he may not be as fanciful or be able to turn into a bat, that's a fucking real vampire, as far as I'm concerned. The guy drank blood.
Yeah.
And he killed to do it.
Well, and you can. I mean, we've all seen The Revenant.
Yeah.
And what Leonardo DiCaprio does in that movie, he's not a vampire, but he drinks the dead mule or whatever the fuck that is.
There is some life force in it.
And you can, if you're in a situation where you're stuck in the woods and you got no food, drinking blood is a genuinely great way.
It keeps you alive for a reason. Yeah.
If you just killed a giant animal or whatever it is, you need some, Native Americans, whatever, these people all drink blood.
Yeah.
Drinking blood is like a great way to buy yourself another couple days. Like,
and
that's a fact, though.
Humans aren't that much different from other animals too. We're still animals. It's more of a faux pas.
You can digest blood. Drinking blood is like a really good way to stay alive.
Yeah. And eating people can make you survive too. Ask the Donner Party.
Yeah, but you get the shakes. Like, what's that movie where they get the shakes?
Book of Eli.
Yep. Exactly. Humans not a good option for non-vampires, but drinking blood is okay. So our conclusions on this are that we got a lot of characters in history and we're missing a lot of them because of the sake of time,
of course.
But is there some truth to? Is there some actual identified diseases? I'd say diseases, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That cause people in history to think that someone's a vampire when they actually have a biological problem or a genetic disease that makes them kind of look like a vampire, act like a vampire.
Well, I didn't say that vampires look like them. Like they are the basis for what vampires look like. They look at people with. I mean, we look through all out of history. If you ever listen to the podcast, even what you said earlier is that people want to explain things that are unexplainable. They don't have the science or the wherewithal to do it. They just look at something, they say it's evil, it's cursed, whatever. And plenty of people are afflicted with awful diseases that would change their skin color, change their appearance, and change their attitudes and actions, which people at the time, and even now still, would take as you're the other, you're a freak, you're scary, you're a monster, and they'd attribute malicious intent to that, which I think is definitely the basis of the idea of vampires. You already mentioned the plagues that happened back in the 1300s and 1400s that had people being buried prematurely, their eyes and their bodies would all turn black. They'd look like they were dead before they were alive, and people being buried prematurely, which is definitely a major reason why people think of the idea of undead. Beyond just the spirituality, they were seeing dead people crawl out of their fucking graves. What more evidence do you need? He's a fucking Satan vampire. Get him!
Yeah. So the first thing is, besides giving a name to anything, is that if you, so the first way to describe a vampire is that they would dig up graves. This is before we get into actual names for diseases. This is actual dead people.
Yeah.
If you bury a human who's not preserved or preserved right now in
Yep.
2021, this is what happens. You bury them in a grave. Their stomachs get distended because of the gases and the decomposition of everything. It looks like they ate a ton of food, but it's actually that their stomachs everything's breaking down the body, so there's a lot of gases. Just like if you were to leave kombucha in a sealed container, it eventually blows the cap off.
Right.
So some stomachs get distended, and then people would see them with a stomach full, quote unquote. It's not. It's just that this is what decomposition looks like.
Yeah. At the
Next
same
thing,
time, their faces and their bodies becoming more and more gaunt as they're becoming like
because
more and
moisture
more.
goes away,
Yeah.
so it looks like they have longer hair.
And
But
longer nails.
Longer hair, nails, but it's actually their nails and hair are not growing. Their skin is receding.
Right.
The moisture in their skin and bones and blood and whatever, it's all going away. So their nails look like they're growing, but it's actually because the skin's receding.
Yes. Yeah, you
That's
think your
part
train's
one.
going past you, but you're just driving and the train's standing still. You're not looking at the right part of it.
Exactly. So if they dig these people up, they think that they must be alive because they look like their belly's full and their nails are growing, their hair's growing. It's like, no, they're actually, their skin's receding.
Yeah.
That's fact number one. If you dig up a dead body, that's just what decomposition looks like.
Yes. What's it go vampire?
Number two, we have living diseases that cause people to act like vampires. And number one that we have is porphyria.
Yeah, porphyria, as far as I can see, it's more of a condition with your liver where it's not able to convert enzymes. I mean, your liver is such an important part of your body, and that's why I feel so badly when I'm abusing the shit out of it on this podcast all the time.
We are.
But it sure makes your brain feel good. But not only with this condition, it comes in like 12 different flavors. It's basically a generalized term for your liver not working properly. But it can change your appearance and your attitudes and your lifestyle in such a way that it can create splotches all over your skin. It could, deteriorate your own face. Some people who have porphyria to a severe degree, they look pretty much like Nosferatu if they lost their nose. Like bulbous head, very tiny pinhole eyes, and just this gaunt, skull-like look to their face. I mean, I feel so bad for these motherfuckers. They have to go through all this because they're still alive, but they look like the living dead.
I've met a person who has a similar disease that's like hemophilia or porphyria, where they're blue. And again,
even now it's shocking, but think of people in the year 1400, they have no way to describe besides you're a fucking vampire.
They generally, back in the 17, 16, 15, 14, back to Egypt, they don't understand that. They thought you had a candle inside you have to breathe oxygen to keep the candle flame alive.
There's a lot of misses for sure. So it's hard to blame them for it. The only thing I blame them for is by treating these people like monsters when they're just regular people.
Yeah, so porphyria is defined as the lack of a protein or amino acid. I'm not really sure, but it's called heme, H-E-M-E. So their blood generally lacks something.
Yeah. Heme being the prefix that means
Hemo,
blood.
yeah, right.
So think about hemophilia, meaning that hemophilia means
iron
loves blood.
Yeah.
Which means that you drain out your blood doesn't coagulate and you can bleed out to death.
Yeah.
Much like Rasputin's favorite little son over there.
That's a good point. Yes, the Romanov son.
Yeah.
So they lack something, and it's usually iron based or whatever it is. And then
hemoglobin is the iron thing.
Exactly. So back then, what they would do is they would give these people blood to drink. Because they thought that your blood lacks some things. We're giving you like good person blood to drink cups of blood.
When really they're giving them the iron, but they're just giving them the whole blood.
Yeah.
It's like if someone
your stomach doesn't just say processed blood that way. Processed as a fucking pizza, so it's not the same thing. But they would.
That's interesting to be like.
They'd be like, drink. If you have a problem, drink blood.
Yeah, like if you lack a certain part in your blood, they give you a whole concoction of blood. It's like if you needed more protein in your diet, and someone gave you an entire pizza with 3 sausages on it.
Yeah.
Sure, you get more protein, but you get everything else too. But they don't
Yeah.
know the difference. So they give you the whole cup
Right.
of blood, hoping that one part of it is the part you need.
Right.
But to them, you need the whole thing.
So imagine being diagnosed with porphyria 100 years ago, 200, 300
I think
years
it's
ago.
porphyria though, with an R.
Oh, I can't fucking spell or read. So, there's a group of the population that would have to drink. They would drink blood to help them.
You're a fucking vampire.
Right.
You're drinking
Right.
blood constantly. Yeah.
So that's one theory, is that there were people who actually like drank blood to they thought would make them stay alive.
Right.
The realistic thing is that what was likely the cause of the initial people, because again, I would say Bram Stoker. He wrote his novel Dracula based off of his own imagination mixed with reality.
Right.
That was a fact.
Yeah.
This is a fact. There's things in society like porphyria and other things where they'd bury people and they'd come back to life, or there were people who had to drink blood to stay alive. And this is scary on top of the Greek mythology, not mythology, but the Greek, people who were scared of vampires, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He wrote this based off of a lot of things that were real. Porphyria is one of them. The most realistic one is porphyria is a really, really realistic one, but the other one is catalepsy. Catalepsy is like
Tell me
epilepsy.
about that. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it. So catalepsy is a lot like epilepsy, where people have like constant seizures or whatever it is, and
The Epstein part of it.
yeah, the Epstein part of it, yeah, and these people would have
Not the Epstein part of it. Different podcast.
different podcasts, yeah. Catalepsy is people would pretty much just die on the spot.
Jesus.
It's a real thing. And
Dracula.
what they would do is back then they'd bury him immediately. Like these people would give him a catalepsy episode can last somewhere between minutes, hours, days, or weeks.
Jeez.
Where what happens is someone like looks like they're dead, and they go, they're really dead, and they barely check their pulse back then.
Oh, they didn't
And-
know about like brain function, pulse. They're
They didn't know
like,
that
if you
stuff,
don't
yeah.
do anything for a day, you're fucking dead.
Exactly. So like the coroner would come around to the doctor, and they visually look at them and say they're dead, bury them.
Yep.
As we know, with people who die in bathtubs or in freezing water, they can have a pulse of somewhere around 20 beats a minute, which the average is somewhere between, if you're a runner, it could be 40. If you're an average person, it's probably somewhere between 60 and 90.
Yeah.
But they have a pulse that's not only weak, but also at a very low beats per minute.
Right.
This can happen for weeks for people with catalepsy, so they bury them, and then they'd bury them, and these people would scratch. They would
Reanimate.
get over their episode,
Yeah.
and then come out of the coffin, scratch, or come out whatever it was.
They're
and they
alive
would look
still.
like shit.
Of course.
Because it's been a while since they had food, water, whatever it is.
And everyone thinks they're dead because they already buried them. So
Yeah, and they'd come back to life, and they'd be like, "Holy shit,
as far
there's
as
a
they're
fucking
concerned,
vampire!"
this
Yeah,
person's a vampire.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So that was
there
a
you
big part of like people being buried. So that's where the wooden stake comes in.
go. What you
at
mentioned
one
earlier,
point in time-
hitting them to the actual coffin.
Yeah, this is the thing where they would actually nail these people to the coffin itself, or put
Jesus
them face
Christ.
down so they would dig down, not up.
Talk about being dealt a bad hand. Not only do you have that
Or, like,
disease,
fucked, yeah.
but even after you have that episode, people think you're a
You're alive.
monster and they want to pin you to your grave. And
You
you're
think
alive.
you're a monster, but you're actually just a normal person who
What the
has
fuck, man?
one little thing go wrong.
God damn it! Modern science really saves a lot of fucking.
Saves a
lives.
lot of people because that shit. I've never heard of a case that happening now, but this is before
People know when you're actually dead. They don't
Sorry.
bury you fucking that early in.
This is before modern technology,
Yeah.
modern medical devices, and even listening devices and things that can track your heart rate, blood pressure. So now this
If
day,
he's declared dead now, you are passed away.
you're dead. Back then, there was not in catalepsy. There's probably 1,000 more things that would cause you to seem like you're dead, but you're not.
Yeah, and you're not getting. And they also had different definitions of what dead meant. They didn't know how to manage brain function or heart arrhythmia or anything like that. But right now nowadays you don't get buried alive unless you're a victim of like the cartel or you're David Blaine and you signed up for it.
That's right. That's right. Pretty crazy. So that's the medical definition of like things that could have caused vampirism.
Catalyst.
And now we're on final thoughts, right? Or,
Same thing. Yeah, same thing for Jesus Christ, leprosy and other diseases that change your appearance, bubonic plague. People thought you look like a corpse. You're still walking among us. You're undead. And a lot of times in modern vampires, we brought up earlier, we do miss out that fact of being undead. Like you are a corpse that survives by the blood of other people. When you see that sexy Bela Lugosi vampire man, or Count Chocula, even sexier, you figure this guy's got magic powers and he's a sexy seductress man. But really, the ancient and even newer ideas of vampires is that you're a corpse that came back to life and you're feasting on the living because you just can't stand to be dead. Either you made a deal with the devil or you lived a cursed life and now you keep haunting the world, sucking their souls out, almost like you're a ghost, but you're a body.
Yep. And as we saw in The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, if you're at that point of death, an actual great way to get you back is drinking blood.
Right.
It is.
You did say that already.
No, I said that already, but I'm just saying, like, if you're at that point where you're in the middle of the woods and you haven't had food in 7 days or 14 days or 30 days or whatever it is and you just had water, drinking blood is a really, really, really good way to get back to give you some sort of nutrients, because blood carries so much nutrients in it. Like,
that's why I always bring blood when I go hiking, because it's not because it's good to spill around in a crime scene and throw off the cops. It's because I don't want to get lost in there. I want to survive. Yeah, you can now Gatorade and protein powder are gonna last you so long, but that nice blood packet, and of course I hide it inside my shirt so it stays at a good 98.6. Just
to make sure it doesn't coagulate.
Right, in case I need to survive.
Yeah,
and that's on record. That's why I do that, not for any other reason.
Just like Joe, dead seriously though. If you are trapped in the woods,
dead serious.
What happened in The Revenant is he kills a giant animal. Doesn't know what to do with the meat. But the first thing he does is drink the blood. It's an excellent, excellent way to buy yourself another couple days.
It's like a jump start on your
no question. I mean, this is a fact. Yeah. So if you raised from the grave because you had catalepsy and you haven't seen the daylight in 7 days, going right for blood, smart move.
Didn't see you there. You know, when I'm enjoying these fine late summer, mid-fall afternoons, I can't think of one more thing to drink than all-day IPA. Who am I kidding? I want to suck your blood!
And now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, final thoughts. Dylan, would you like to go first?
I honestly want nothing more to go first. So
please go.
I'm going to do it.
I'll invite you in, as it were.
Oh, give me some reason to come in. So my final thoughts are, first things first, is that throughout history, you look back even thousands of years, this has been a thing. People are scared of vampires. I cannot say at 29.9 years old that vampires aren't real. Can't do it. There is a chance that they are out there. And especially in today's day, they have more information to hide and do their thing. Easy way to be a vampire. You know where to go.
More victims.
Know where not to go. Know who's vulnerable. Know who's not vulnerable. Easy peasy.
More tracking, more cameras though than ever. But vampires can't be seen in mirrors. Maybe they can't be seen in cameras either.
Possibly, and also they can deceive whatever is around them. Right. So if they're around, they can convince things to. It's actually easier for them to just be like, you didn't see this, and they just don't even remember.
Yeah, when the cops do show up, they're like, nothing to see here, and then they just leave and they go, it was nothing.
And the only one who's on the radar of the world is Saint Germain.
Right.
And he could be around. So
you think he got too big for his britches?
What?
Like he got too famous that people noticed him, and the other vampires are more like quiet about it and like.
He was in New Orleans, it's for sure, and he might have moved somewhere else. Again, if you go, we've all seen Hostel. If you go to some place like that, no one's gonna find you. Right. So Saint Germain, the New Orleans thing, I generally think that there could seriously be vampires in New Orleans, and I actually believe that. I'd kind of be scared if I went there. I haven't been there yet, so I'll probably be there in the next couple of years. But the Saint Germain thing, if you do more due diligence on Saint Germain, you'll see that New Orleans, Saint Germain, there's a thing there. Second thing is that there are, just like UFOs, let's say there's 1 million UFO sightings in the U.S. a year.
Seems high.
Seems high. 100 of the 1 million are probably genuinely unexplainable. So we're going the same ratio as things we go about. That there's a lot of.
And there's 1 million vampire sightings.
No, I said UFOs. I said if
I was trying to translate it over to what you're saying.
The vampires?
Sorry, go ahead.
I said that there's a lot of things that could be, but probably aren't. But there probably are some.
Right.
They're smart. These are intelligent people, just like me and you, or not like me and you, depending on who thinks we're intelligent or not.
Just like me and you.
We're not sure, but they've got a way to figure this out, and they're more educated than ever because of more technology. But overall, I think that if there are vampires, there's a lot of places in the world where they could hide and do their thing, and no one would really know. New Orleans is a very, very interesting piece of this.
A lot of freaks.
But I believe that a lot of it is to explain back when this was a novel based off of obviously more awareness and more, hey, holy shit, this is a thing.
Right.
But overall, I think New Orleans is where people should look and focus, and I can't explain the New Orleans one with Saint Germain. But the rest of it, there's a lot of diseases that can make people want blood. And again, with Elizabeth Bathory, if you don't understand the process of things, she bathed in younger people's blood because she thought it was different blood than hers.
Right.
And it made her younger and whatever it is, and had blood facials. They still do that, by the way. You can go somewhere and have your blood taken.
Yeah.
Your own blood. They take whatever it is, however many, like a pint of blood out of you.
Yeah.
And then put it all over your face to make you look younger. So they're doing stuff.
That's retarded.
But people are doing it. And
Dude, blood doping works. Look at fucking Lance Armstrong. Take the blood,
add more,
super oxygenate it, and then add it back in later. That's real shit. Put
Well,
your blood back in.
Well, blood doping is so yes, but blood doping is also like for the car people out there. If you have a rear differential in your car that has 3 quarts of differential fluid, and it gets to let's say 200 degrees, that gets pretty hot. If you add another quart, you have heat displacement. Makes it less hot because there's more fluid to heat up.
Yeah.
So like blood doping is a similar thing. You have more blood with more oxygen, so your body. So Lance Armstrong would have more blood in him because there's more oxygen.
Yeah.
So his body naturally processes, what is it, 5-6 quarts of blood in your body? Pints. Sorry.
I don't know how much, but yeah.
It's like 6 pints of blood in the human body or something, or maybe it's 13. I don't fucking know. But anyways,
it can't be 6 quarts, right? I mean,
it's
but it has to be more than 6
pints,
pints, though. Is it? If they take a pint out, you're in trouble. If they take a couple pints out, you're in big trouble. But you can't have 6 pints in your whole body, can you?
Maybe it's.
There's not a gallon of blood in your body. There must be at least a gallon in your whole
body. Maybe it's 15.
Maybe.
Let's say 15.
I don't know. We'll put it on. We'll put it on.
Well, Joe will edit and figure it out.
So sorry, I'm thinking.
So the more pints of blood, so like your body can hold more than it's supposed to have, and then as a cyclist,
but you can't just shoot it all over your face and become more a young person by bathing your face in it. And that's magical shit. That's not real shit. You can't just splash it all over your face and become, maybe you might absorb through your skin or your capillaries in your eyes, but you're much more well off if you inject it back into your bloodstream where your blood
how many
goes.
chemicals women? Sorry to be sexist, but do you know
Botox, for example?
Botox is different. We're not talking that right now. That's a whole different thing. We're not going to get that right now.
I thought we were talking about putting chemicals in your body to make yourself younger.
Botox is botulism that seizes your muscles. Yeah. It's a different mechanism.
Vanity is still the cause.
So right now, have you ever used a face mask before?
No.
I have used 1,000 of them.
I'm also straight.
Okay, I am too, but I also love that shit. It's fucking great. Female products work.
I'm just shitting. My skin is terrible. I could probably use one.
It looks great.
It is terrible, though. I appreciate you saying that. Though.
Yeah, I actually, honestly, I'm not being nice because I'm not trying to do that. Your skin is actually perfect.
Sounds a good friend. I was just shitting on you, and you're just a good guy.
Oh, thanks, man. Your skin's great. But
love you.
But they, you can put all sorts of serums and things on your skin to make it help it better.
You meant to say semen, right?
That too. Actually, semen facials are real.
I love that.
And I feel like it probably does something.
It's like the idea.
Not just someone just.
It's like the idea that women can't drive. It's like God said it. I don't know. It's like actually, if you put semen all over your face, it's actually good for you. Like I'm sure a woman came up with that idea.
There's a lot in semen. So.
Much like blood.
Not just sperm and fucking protein. There's more in there. But like blood facials compared to a facial.
There's Alyssa in there.
A facial cream that you buy. I don't know what you said, but there's like things that. You go to the store and you buy this chemicals on your face. Why not blood? Honestly, I think that there's something to put blood on your face.
I don't think so. You lost me there.
I do. Everyone else puts.
What the fuck? If you cut your hand and then blood gets all over your skin, it doesn't make your skin better. It's already part of your body.
You don't know
You're
that.
a biological system. You don't need. I don't know that, but neither do you. But
No.
I know what the body works like, and so do you.
But it might help your skin topically.
That's insane. Why don't you just cut your own face open and have you bleed all over your face? It can't be good for your body.
Why would you put benzoyl peroxide or put salicylic acid in your face?
These are things that are outside of the body that you're adding to change your composition of your skin to try to change what you need to happen. Taking things from inside of your body and bringing them out, for the most part, is a terrible thing. Your body's a machine built to be. Don't turn the engine upside down in the car and lacquer the inside of your wheel wells. It's built that way for a reason. It took millions of years to do it, and the blood's supposed to go on the inside part.
This is why we have a podcast, because we disagree on a lot of things.
This is what I thought.
I think if you put your blood on your face, it might reduce wrinkles.
Yes, it might.
It might.
But it's also fucking weird, and I know for a fact that if you put enough blood on your face from your body, you will die like a fucking asshole. Because you'll lose so much blood to make yourself look cute that you'll die.
Someone else's blood.
You sound like Elizabeth Bathory right now.
I am. I'm going down that road. I'm just saying what she's doing.
She was onto something there by bathing in blood. I thought we were agreeing on that. That's ridiculous.
It's
that
not-
you could
it's
bathe
not-
in
it's
blood
not-
and get any benefits
It's
at
not
all.
extending her life. It just
Completely
might make
insane.
her look younger because it might add moisture.
doesn't.
At the very least.
Well, then
at
just
the very least,
take
it
a
adds-
lotion bath. Take a lotion
say
bath.
she's someone from Europe, which she is, and she has dry skin because
Yeah.
she's going to the fucking sun.
Yeah.
And like she's not like me, who's a different European descent, mostly yours, but a
Swarthy.
little different. I have more of a Mediterranean thing
A
going
little
on.
less melanin, sure.
I'm more oily than you are. That's a fact.
Yeah, I'm
People
much more
like
dry.
you who are more fucking dry and
I'm very flaky.
white and red haired.
Oh yeah.
Because you are. This is a
Blotchy.
fact. Maybe some blood can make you look younger when you're 60. I'm just saying. When you're 60, you can look you're 50. You do blood baths every day from now to then.
Yeah, it's a bloodbath. You see what that word means usually?
I know, but we're using it in Elizabeth Bathory terms, not in...
Which is the same as usual on murdering
not in
hundreds
murdering.
of young girls for your own vanity.
Just
bathing
saying.
in blood.
There's something to it, man.
Interesting.
That's my... I don't know if anyone has any conclusion from that, but you know where I'm going. So,
Well,
Joe's turn.
Alright, sorry.
Vampires are in New Orleans, and blood on your skin will make you look younger if you use it enough, is my theory. And also if you're in the woods and you need to drink blood, it will genuinely make you stay alive longer.
That I'm on board with.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I'm just saying facts right now.
Yeah. This-
Vampires
consuming
are
other life forms.
possibly,
keeping lives.
there's a 50% chance vampires are still around.
Seems high.
Blood is beneficial for sure. You can pay to get a blood facial today, right now, Joe, with your own blood.
Oh, you can get them for free, dude. I'll send you the Craigslist link.
I can do it for free now. I can do it for free too, but you have to get clean needles and it's a big mess.
Oh no, who needs that?
Well,
you know?
you can cut your finger too, but like that's
You get it for free. Just slice away.
have a professional
baby.
do it and pay the money.
I love that. We had to clean the needles off when we bathe your face in blood to save you. Let's not be, not scientific about this. We need to at least make sure the needles are clean when we're bathing your face in blood.
Have
to
you ever
make
given
younger.
blood?
No.
I have, and I passed out, but it was like, I actually passed out.
Well, are you gonna tell me why you should clean the needles? Yeah, those are all things that you should do. It's medical science. You should make sure the needle's clean. You should only give so much blood. You got to eat a cookie to maintain your blood
Yeah.
sugar. Those are all things that actually work.
I did 8 Oreos.
Splashing.
And they give me Oreos. Yeah, I know. I threw up.
Splashing blood all over your face. Be like, let's make sure it's clean and it's clinical. It's not clinical at all. It's already a crazy ritual of fucking.
Splashing's not the same thing.
It's already magic. Why even make sure the needle's clean? Just pray to Baphomet and just fucking splash away.
Splashing isn't the same thing as applying blood.
Apply.
Different. Okay.
Sweetheart, I'm gonna apply this on your face. Just close your eyes. I don't want to get in your eyes. I don't want to apply it in your eyes.
Dude, girls are
Open your mouth too.
girls are like a different thing. Like females, they want to look younger always. Men,
All right.
we age.
Final
We
my turn,
age
final
like
thought.
George Clooney. We all do. I'm sorry.
Oh, I wish we
okay?
did. Jesus
no, we
Christ.
do. You
Silver
will too.
fox.
Dude, you're gonna look amazing at 50.
I wish I looked like George Clooney.
No,
Either way, all right. So
you're
here's
not
my.
gonna look at George Clooney. I'm sorry.
Here's my
you
final
look great
thoughts.
when you're. Dude, add every 10 years, you fucking age like a fucking fine Scotch, because you're from that area.
Thank you for
Yeah.
tailoring
Just
me.
say you will. I'm done, man. Dude,
All right,
it's
so
just-
these are my
good
final
thing.
thoughts on vampires. Thank you very much, Dylan. It's
Insane.
interesting as
Oh,
always.
that's therapy. Just get some fucking blood.
Yeah, nice guy.
It'll look great.
Yeah, no, vampires. My final thoughts is just my usual shit. Of course it is.
Says everyone who doesn't drink blood. Joe's saying.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
no one does that.
Wait.
Yeah, that's your secret. That's why
Again, drinking blood
Joe.
different than applying to your face. We
You're
already established that.
You're more handsome every
consuming
time I
the
see you, Joe.
nutrients
You're
in
more
blood,
handsome every
you're
time I
a
see you because
fucking-
you're fucking drinking blood.
You're
And
blind as a
everyone-
bat. A vampire bat. Let me do my final thoughts here. Vampires, I think they're interesting as hell. They're very cool. It's a perfect mix for this podcast where it's the historical aspects, the supernatural aspects, the confusion with people, the enlightenment between actually realizing what's really going on here, and understanding what it truly is. And that's where Dylan misses me as always, and where I go off my own path, which is that we know so much more now about how the human body works and how people can survive. We don't feed blood to people who are sick. We give them the nutrients that they need to survive. And we do it intravenously. We don't splash it on their face because that could not work just as
You go
well
to
as
his
you want to.
doctor.
If you go to my doctor, Dr. Acula.
Oh, in Providence.
Spell it out.
Undisclosed location.
Anyways, I think that it's an amazing mythos and concept. I know that you're bummed out by them fucking with it, and I am too. I like the classic Dracula form of it. I don't like the zombie version. I don't like the you take a pill and you're a good writer. What are we even talking about at this point? Are we even talking about vampires at this point anymore? Let's call it something else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's gonna be vampire. It's vampire.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's famous throughout history of the idea of it, and I love the modern versions of it, and I hope that people keep going on and on with the vampire concept because much like so much we talk about, there's something intrinsic about the vampire. It's throughout all cultures, throughout all of time. I mean, think about the fucking chupacabra in Mexico, the goat sucker. I mean, that's a fucking cryptid, and it's
They
sucking the
drink
blood out to
blood.
survive. I mean, it just is. There's a natural idea. It's like those. I mean, I don't believe in a whole lot of things like supernatural, but there are just these fundamental tenets of humanity where like we just believe these certain things about reality and the world we have, and it seems to us to be like the concept of death and surviving and the life force in people's bodies and draining it out. We all believe that that's some part of the reality we live in now, and you wouldn't want to ever fall prey rather to that and be the victim of a vampire. But if you were, you better hope it's Dracula, because that's one sexy motherfucker there. And I guess that's all I got to say about vampires there.
Yeah. That's our conclusions.
So that's vampires.
Vampires. We thank you guys, as always, for coming to the basement.
Welcome back. Sorry we took a little bit of a break. We're busy guys. But
Busy
we'll always
guys.
give some shit for you guys in the meantime. We'll keep you updated on the
trapdoor
orange
is always
monoliths.
there, yeah.
The orange monolith, we're going to get more into that. We're figuring out all about. Thank
Yeah.
you, Marlboro, for looking into that. Trapdoor, I'll give you a couple trapdoors
Yeah.
every now and then.
Chicken
Interesting
pox,
topics,
trapdoor, yep. Mhm.
Whatever you got to do. But thanks again for coming to the basement. We always appreciate you guys listening in. And I mean, obviously, we do this because we love to do it. We didn't glue on fangs today that you can barely see under these red lights.
see 'em.
Because we didn't want to do it. This is what we like to do.
Yeah.
We love it.
We'll be here next week. We'll see you guys. Thanks for joining the Dylan Joe BASEMENT podcast. I'm Delicious Dylan. This is
And I'm Count Jocula.
Count Jocula. And we'll see you guys next episode.
The real life version.
The real life version.
The curse and the magic and the transformation and all that shit. Excusez-moi.
Excuse both of us.
Too many Bloody Marys before the podcast.
Oh
Stop it.
yeah. And since then he hasn't really been
Well,
seen.
we can test the original Saint Germain's wine. We might find it very soon.
Exactly.
Holy fuck!
So even to this day,
Unholy fuck!
So again, Queen of the Damned and Blade are kosher. They're kosher, right?
They're kosher. No shellfish in the vampire blood. What can I say? It's kosher.
Exactly what I'm saying.